Hello and welcome to Staying Home, your revolutionary guide to the Green New Deal. I'm Josh Fox. Today, what a program today. We have Paula Jean Swearingen, who you probably saw in Knock Down the House, and she's currently trying to knock down the Senate, running for U.S. Senate in the great state of West Virginia. And we have Jolie Holland. We're going to talk with Paula Jean about the obstacles and all of the things about the state of West Virginia. State of West Virginia is one of the most, I think, very close to my heart as a person from PA, from Pennsylvania. There's so many similarities, but it's also one of those states that has been the most beleaguered and destroyed and violated and raped by the fossil fuel industry. If you've ever seen mountaintop removal for coal, you understand what it is to completely destroy the land and to completely have no respect for the environment or the people who live there. So I'm excited to get into the issues with Paula Jean. And so without any further ado or introduction, let's go right into it because I see Paula Jean is already here. All right, Paul. I was doing my intro. Are you ready to start, Paula?
I am. Thank you for having me on. It's good to see you again.
Oh, it's great to see you. I think the last time we saw each other was at the People's Summit. Now you've gotten that Democratic nomination in the great state of West Virginia. So many people, there's such a mythology about West Virginia. First, let's just talk about West Virginia because you know, it's a state that Joe Manchin called the coal state, and he was corrected. And they said, no, we're not the coal state, we're the mountain state. And it's this incredible place. I filmed a short film there called Gas Work about a family from West Virginia who lost one of their sons on a gas rig in New York State. And Charlotte Bevins, who was fighting for her justice for her brother's name, said she felt all day long she was just being hugged by those mountains in West Virginia. And West Virginia is this incredible contradiction because it's this beautiful, gorgeous, amazing place. There's just love and beauty down every holler. And at the same time, incredible destruction on behalf of the coal industry and now also the fracking industry. So talk about the primary issues right now facing West Virginia.
Well, we have been treated like a resource colony, and that's why I ended up taking the path to run for office. I'm a coal miner's daughter and granddaughter, and I'm proud to be a coal miner's daughter and granddaughter. But, because I was a coal miner's daughter and granddaughter, and most of my family was in coal, I've been to more families than I have family reunions. I lived in a community called Iroquois. I was born in a small community called Mullins, and I drank acid mine drainage when I was a little girl. A lot of people still get their water supply, the water from abandoned coal mines. Our water was blue and purple. It had a purple film and it had metal specks in it. And we baked in it, we cooked in it until my stepdad got laid off in the coal mines and we moved to North Carolina for a while. I didn't know I wasn't a redhead until I was 12 years old. And we came back home when my grandpa got sick. And, I found out about mountain tarp removal. My neighbor's daughter got cancer because they were injecting slurry underneath our town. And, if another country did come in here and blow up our mountains and poison our water, we would go to war. And there's a clear difference between being a friend of a coal baron and being a friend of a coal miner. And we've been bid against each other for basic human rights. And what people don't understand about this, the dynamic in this state, we are really stigmatized. We don't have no teeth, no shoes, no brains. I'm just like the hillbilly eulogy right now. If please do not pay attention to that. That's not West Virginia. And it's a disgrace. It's dance hillbilly dance and make us look as bad as possible. And we're some of the most despicable people in the world.
That's
And
true.
we have more Democrats than we do Republicans registered in the state and independents, but people will not be motivated to the polls. And when you're desperate to wonder where your next meal is going to come from, when we have counties that can't even sustain Walmart, and Walmart's the biggest employer in the state, and you can go out of high school and you can make $70,000 to $80,000 a year in a coal mine and have access to things that you never had access to, it's hard to think about the future of your lungs. It's hard to think about your neighbor's water until it happens to you and it's in your backyard, or you're suffering and wish you didn't break your back and underneath a mountain half your life.
People being given the choice between no employment and very, very dangerous employment for the whole history of the state of West Virginia.
Well, you look at the Upper Big Branch disaster. That's a prime example. It was a non-union mine. If it had been my grandpa's day, he was in the coal mines for 45 years, and he's a proud UMWA member. And if they had the support of a good, strong union, those guys could have walked out. They were even scared to reach out to miners' health and safety and let everybody know what's going on, because they knew if they spoke out, they would be blacklisted. And they basically were murdered just because they wanted to put food on their tables.
Paula Jean, talking about Upper Big Branch mine disaster, the biggest single death toll in a mining disaster, I think, in history, or at least in this century, or in quite some time. This century, right? I think 25 miners or so perished.
29 miners.
29 miners. I co-produced a film on this called Blood on the Mountain, which you can see, I think, on Netflix nowadays. But it's an incredibly horrible story, and that mine had so many violations. And as we know from looking at fossil fuel industry, from the history of the fossil fuel industry, they don't care about regulations. They don't care about whether they have to pay a little bit of a fine or not. And that will often lead to people's death. I just wanted to update people who don't understand that that mining disaster that happened.
Well,
and that happened during the Obama era, right?
Let's not give Jim Justice a pass, our governor. He's one of the biggest polluting coal barons in West Virginia. He owes unmade mine fines in Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, and Virginia. Not only does he not pay his taxes, and then even though he did not kill 29 miners at once, I know specifically there's a young man in Wyoming County that was the medic in the mine, and he complained about a faulty man trip over and over and over and over. And so it was typical from day to day to go put WD-40 on a man trip. And if you don't know what a man trip is, it's the vehicle that takes the men, the men and women in and out of the mine when they go into work. And so one morning he went in and him and another guy was putting WD-40 on that man trip, and it crushed his head. It kicked on and crushed the man's head in front of him, pushed his whole body against the wall in the coal mine, and crushed the bones in his body after he watched that man, die in front of him. And he had to call for his own Metaflight. And he went through 6 hours of litigation with Jim Justice's lawyers calling him a murderer. That's how people are treated here.
Well, I interviewed a man working on a fracking rig whose hand was crushed, and this is in my short film Gas Work. His hand was crushed because they're telling people to go faster, go faster, go faster, go faster, and it's not safe. And this man was given no medical attention. He basically had no recourse. That was it. He was out of a job. This is a person who works with their hands, and one of their hands. We spent the entire interview just focused on his hand, blown up like a football, and it's horrible to see. This type of corruption and greed, and it's so centered in West Virginia. When you brought up the acid mine drainage that you're talking about, I remember being in when we were marching up Blair Mountain. On anniversary, marching up Blair Mountain. I was there, and we were staying overnight, camping over in a state park. And I got there after dark, and I heard this babbling brook, and I thought, oh, this is wonderful. I'm going to camp right next to this babbling brook. And it was a weird thing because I got to the state park, and there was an Olympic-sized swimming pool in the front of the state park. And I thought, well, why is there an Olympic-sized swimming pool at a state park? You're supposed to swim in the river or swim in the creek or whatever. And I woke up the next morning, and I went down to that babbling brook, and it was bright orange.
Yep.
Bright orange, like you've never seen, like a cone on a highway, that color. That's not what water's supposed to be, and that's what acid mine drainage is. And I thought, oh, well, this is why they have an Olympic swimming pool at the beginning of a forest, so the kids can swim someplace, because the coal mining industry has so destroyed the water supplies there. What
high levels of manganese, selenium, arsenic. Can you imagine arsenic flowing down the river by your house? And with the big slurry impoundment, people don't know what a slurry impoundment is we have these big earthen dams that houses coal waste. Way back in my grandpa's day, they used to wash coal with soap. Now they wash it with a couple hundred chemicals, and they dispose of it in one or two ways. One way is they'll inject it into abandoned coal mines underneath communities, which reaches to people's groundwater and gets into their aquifer. Or, with slurry impoundments, they just build it. They're not lined. They build them up above communities. We have one. It's called the Brushy Fork impoundment. It's in Boone County. It's permitted to be bigger than the Hoover Dam. I think it's over 8 billion gallons right now as we talk. And it's cited by the Department of Environmental Protection every week. It has abandoned coal mines underneath it, which makes it very unstable. And at one point in time, they were blasting off the tops of the mountains up next to it within 100 feet. And imagine the catastrophe would happen if that thing burst. It's already happened. If you look up the Buffalo Creek disaster, my opponent's father, which I don't think, I don't attack anybody personally. She's not the fault of her father, but she is there under the corrupt political dynasty. But, 3 of those.
You're referring to Shelley Moore Capito.
Shelley Moore Capito. 3, we had 3, 1 breach and take out 2 more. Over 100 some people died. Over 10,000 people were left homeless. And Arch Moore called it an act of God and sided with the industry.
What I want to just break this down for people. First, I have to say, you're tuned in to Staying Home, your revolutionary guide to the Green New Deal. I'm Josh Fox. We'll be right back. You're tuned in to Staying Home, your revolutionary guide to the Green New Deal. I'm Josh Fox. I'm with Paula Jean Swearingen, who's running for Senate in the great state, the mountain state, the beautiful state of West Virginia, the state of the nicest people you ever meet, and great banjo playing as well, and all the traditions there. But we're talking about coal slurries. If you don't know what a slurry pond or a pit is, you're talking about an onshore tsunami of toxic chemicals waiting above a community. And this has happened where those slurries have broke loose, and you've basically got an acid chemical bath coming shooting down into your community, and it's like a tsunami. And this is the kind of thing that these coal companies are allowed to do under the current regime. So what are the things? Now, this is a question I often ask because we talk about the Green New Deal on this program, right? The Green New Deal is obsessed with not obsessed with justice. I'm obsessed with justice. The Green New Deal's priority is justice, and justice for frontline communities. And in a way, all of West Virginia, whether it's the coal or, as Maria Gonneau told me, she said, keep going, because if the coal doesn't get us, the fracking will. If it's coal or fracking, what does justice look like in the front line?
Justice is economic diversity first and foremost. And we don't see just transition now. And the market for coal is not going to rebound. I'm tired of these people placating on our struggles and saying that coal's going to rebound, because it's not. We had over 140,000 coal miners in the 70s. We have less than 50,000 nationwide. And there's no just transition. And there is a push for gas in this state. They're trying to bring in the Appalachian Storage Hub, cracker plants, fracking, a lot, even with the pipelines coming in, those jobs are not even, they're outsourced and they're not in our communities. They're not protecting our water. They're not protecting our air. It's very limited in the jobs that we could bring. If we brought renewables here, it would be long-term sustainable jobs. If we legalized and decriminalized cannabis, we would see economic growth within 6 to 8 months. People don't know we have hot spots for geothermal in our state.
Yeah.
We could be utilizing that. This is the birthplace of rivers. The Appalachian region, these mountains are some of the oldest in the world. We have dams across the state that we could utilize for hydropower that are already in place. If we actually had good roads, good schools, comprehensive broadband, invested in education and make sure that people had, educational opportunities, and every child in this state, no matter what their financial status or zip code, had an education, and just invested in our state, then we would invite business here. Tourism is the latest, is our top economic industry in our state. And we can't even protect our water supply. And people, I had a lady with a documentary come here one time. And after she went down in the coal fields and she seen some of the water, she went back. She didn't bath the whole week she was here.
Right.
And there's so many people in the state that still don't have access to clean potable water, or even adequate sewage systems. The Industrial Revolution was built on the backs of West Virginians, their families, and surrounding communities. And that's why I'm sitting here now, is because my opponent, she's a grandmother and mother like me. She's turned a blind eye to the children dying and starving in this state. They're not, not literally starving, but we have teachers and educators and everybody across the state feeding folks. We have so many people that are homeless, Vietnam vets that have came home and didn't have nothing to come on. And, per standards, a bag of beans a week might be good enough for somebody, but I know what it's like to go hungry when the market for coal is down. I remember one time I can remember my stepdad got laid off the coal mines. My mom was making beans every day to feed us. And she would go to the grocery store with food stamps, paper food stamps once a month. And I was preschool aged, and she would feed me macaroni and butter, and she ran out. And she had to swallow her pride and ask my grandparents to bring us food, because I begged for food for 3 days because she couldn't feed me lunch. I remember going to the grocery store with paper food stamps, and my mom sending us in with $1 food stamp to pick out the cheapest piece of candy so we could use that change to have gas to get back home. My opponent has never, ever had to struggle. She's never had to wonder where her next meal is going to come from. She's never had to survive paycheck to paycheck. And she placates to corporations and lobbyists and special interests. The biggest thing she's done is get legislation passed for commemorative coins. She's voted against equal pay for women at least 3 times. She tried to turn Medicare into a voucher program. To me, this is a grandma fight. We are women. We're nurturers. Women across the state, not like women like Capito. It's not been about partisan issues. Pre-COVID, I was down in Payton City, helping women get water in the community because they were dealing with PCEs. And some of them were Republicans, some of them were, Democrats, but it wasn't about partisan politics. We are hospitable, and we're good people in this state, but we are underestimated, especially the women. If you mess with our young, we're going to go to war. And so, Sally Moore Capito, no matter what happens with this election, this is a long game. We had over 93 candidates in our state that are ordinary people like myself that are just tired of a government that's not serving us, swear off corporate PAC dollars. 43 of those candidates won. And every Democratic nominee, the 1st congressional district, the 2nd, the 3rd in the United States Senate, we're all women. We don't take corporate PAC dollars, and we're ready to bust the halls of Congress wide open and make sure we do have a seat at the table in Washington, D.C. This is a fight for our lives.
What people need to realize is that if they don't give a damn about West Virginia, then they don't give a damn about the 8-hour work week. They don't give a damn about the fact that kids don't work in child labor laws. All of these things that were born out of the struggles of coal miners and people who were doing sulfur mining also, I think, or silicon dioxide or whatever it was, like these things that were crushing people's lungs, that people died. And the modern work week, the modern work day was born out of those struggles in West
Mother
Virginia.
Jones, Joe Hill, the
Yep.
miners of Mate One, the miners of Blair One, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
I think we've dated back like 5 or 6 generations of coal mining in my family. And I do have my ancestors' blood in my veins, and I'm ready to fight for labor in this state too. And this is the heart of labor. And, I'm for a living wage. And, I'll be honest with you, Josh, if you told me 20 years ago that I was going to be the Democratic nominee for United States Senate, I told you were crazy. We have to fight this damn hard to be heard. This hard. I'm sitting here, a poor coal miner's daughter. I've given up so much, throughout the years as an activist. My kids eating chicken nuggets at night after I got off work because, I was, on conference calls, or me traveling around the country, begging for clean water, clean air, and economic diversity for my state. And we've not been heard. And now we're dealing with one of the largest addiction crises in the country. We lead in drug overdose deaths. And my opponent, she's, her third top donor is the pharmaceutical industry. She's one of the biggest, drug dealers in Washington, D.C. She allowed the pharmaceutical industry to ship mass amounts of pills in our communities. Why? Because she sits on her golden throne and she does not think that the value of life in West Virginia is important, and we are collateral damage to her.
There's a stranglehold on the politics, though, it seems, from an oligarchic class. Some of them are Republicans. Some of them are Democrats like Joe Manchin. What does it take, in your opinion, to break that power grip? Because it seems to me every single person that I've ever met from West Virginia knows everything that you're talking about right now. How do we translate that
because
into
it's been the
political
lesser
action?
two evils. That's why you see a movement of ordinary people, not just with the West Virginia Can't Wait movement, but we led the charge in 2018 with brand new Congress and ordinary people running for office, is putting the government back into the hands of the people. There's a lot of Republicans that I talked to pre-COVID when we was allowed to go around the state, and people that I've talked to on the phone. We want economic diversity. We know, we go out our doors every day, and we've seen that things have not changed in the last how many decades. We know what it's like to struggle. It's just we've not had anything to vote for. And I think that's why Donald Trump kind of resignated. When you're so desperate. And he come in, he wasn't an ordinary politician. He said he made all these promises. He didn't fulfill those promises, but he was different. He wasn't these polished politicians that we put on a pedestal and we don't feel like we have any power. And post Donald Trump, we have seen so many people run for office like myself. And one of the reasons I did, I'm like, hell, if he can, I can do it. And put the government actually back into the hands of the people, of the people, by the people, for the people. And the people in West Virginia, we've been rising up since the labor struggles, the teacher strike in 2018, and and even now with this election cycle. It's just that we're in the fight for our lives. And name recognition is an issue for any candidate, because these people have been entrenched for a long time.
For a long time.
They have control. And so if anybody,
but it feels to me like you have the formula here, because you're slowly advancing as you organize, as you get the word out, as you get the message out. I have to say, you're tuned into Staying Home, your revolutionary guide to the Green New Deal. I'm with Paula Jean Swearingen. We'll be right back. You're tuned into Staying Home, your revolutionary guide to the Green New Deal. I'm with Paula Jean Swearingen, running for Senate in West Virginia, Democratic nominee for Senate, and a brilliant woman, brilliant campaigner, an incredible activist and politician. So Paula Jean, let's talk about the coal miners just for a second, because it always amazed me that people were begging to do a job that really hurt them, that really harmed their health. And now you have this Green New Deal, which is saying, we're going to transition you. We're going to transition you into new kinds of jobs. And there's even plans. There's plans to put wind turbines on a lot of the ridges that could replace the mountaintop removal sites.
Well, the Reclaim Act, if it was passed, there's jobs right there just cleaning up the environmental damage and dividing propaganda. It's an age-old strategy. As a candidate, if I go into Cofields and I say Green New Deal, somebody shuts down. But then I start talking about renewables and I start talking about our potential, and it resonates. Our media outlets spend a lot of money dividing people, and the more you keep people down, the more divided, the less they pay attention and the less hopeful they are. And this is about people realizing that there are solutions. There is a federal jobs guarantee. And it's, there again, it's just placating on people's struggles and beating them down even more.
So what are the, aside from all the environmental and energy issues and jobs issues that we've just been talking about, let's talk a bit about Medicare for All. Let's talk about it, because I know that's a part of your platform. Is that resonating when you talk to people?
It actually is, and I'm unforgiving. I'm a stellar advocate for Medicare for All, and I'll tell you why. This is one of the sickest and poorest states in the nation. A large bulk of our population is elderly. We have a lot of people that are on Medicaid already. We are suffering with the addiction epidemic, which would help greatly making sure that people get into the recovery systems that they deserve. But small businesses, it ties into economic diversity. Small businesses have a hard time surviving because they have to pay a higher tax rate than Walmart. And even pre-COVID, small businesses were shutting down. If they don't have to carry the burden of high premiums, they can put that back into their business and their employees. And that, we deserve it. Like I said, the Industrial Revolution was built on the broken backs of West Virginians. The least that we can do is provide West Virginians and everybody across the country something so basic as health care. We all know right now there's a lot of people that have insurance, but they still don't have access to health care. Because of their deductibles and copays, there's some people that pay insurance premiums and they still can't afford their insulin. And it's just something we deserve. It not only makes moral sense, it makes economic sense. And how are we going to pay for it? It's statistically been proven that it would save this country money. However, we don't have a budgeting problem in this country. We have a moral problem that creates a budgeting problem. This is one of the wealthiest countries in the world. The least we could do is advance like other countries and make sure that everybody in this country has health care.
Well, unbelievably
one thing more too.
Go ahead, yes.
Is with Medicare for All, there's just transition for people that work in the health insurance industry. Sure. And what we've seen here with the rug pulled out from underneath people, coal miners or people up in the northern panhandle that were connected to coal mining with Weirton Steel, the rug was pulled out from underneath them. I love the most about Medicare for All outside of it being great that it gives everybody health care, but there's just transition. So when we grow, then we are advancing and we are not leaving anybody behind.
What do you think is the core principle? I mean, I know you know how to talk about this, but I want to know in terms of getting normal people, you say regular people, to run for office, right? There is such almost a hero worship, a cult of personality, this sort of thing about the mystification of the oligarchy, right? Which I think really harms our politics in so many ways. Talk about why it's so important.
We have to be careful with that, with this movement too. One person can't save us. Government 101, we need a government body, no matter if they're Democrat, Republican, setting down and making sure that they're people servants and making good, decisions outside of, and not serving corporations and lobbyists. But it takes people to get legislation passed. And so, people should be thinking about running for office from a local level to a federal level. That's how we're going to change our government. We have changed the narrative already in this country. Cory Bush is going to Congress. You think, C-SPAN is going to be fun now once Cory Bush gets out on the House floor.
That's true.
But we just have to keep on have to push that needle. It's like Alexander Ocasio-Cortez said, it takes 100 of us to try in order for one of us to win. And we have to look at this as a long game, and we are building a movement of people that are dedicated and putting the government back into the hands of the people. We do outnumber these people. Right. There's more poor people in this state than they are Shelley-Moore Capito's. And we are even in this country. And we are in the fight for our lives. We're in the fight for future generations. We're in the fight for my grandchild and every grandchild across this country. And we just have to keep going. We're going to suffer losses. And, everything's not going to go our way. But if you look in past movements and past social justice movements, and you look at the labor movement, you suffer losses, but you have to keep going. And for me, there's no bigger motivator than my children and grandchildren. I'd cut my leg off for them. And this is survival for me. Sometimes I question my sanity, but it's necessary so the will of the people will be done for a change.
What I worry about is that coal is on the downturn. It's just going away. Coal is going away. And if you don't have a just transition, if you don't have something like a Green New Deal, what will happen? in West Virginia is where will that workforce go? What will they? Will
Well,
they
they're
be
leaving the
unemployed?
state. We're already suffering with depopulation. You wouldn't believe how many people that have left the state that have donated volunteer time and dollars in this campaign just because they want to come back home.
Oh yeah.
There's no opportunity here. We're 49th and 50th in opportunity, and we're going to continue to see depopulation as long as this continues to happen. But the people that are here, are a lot of people are stuck. It's like, well, if you don't like it, won't you just leave? Well, it
Right.
takes money, and if you're wondering where your next meal is going to come from, then you just don't have the resources to pack up and leave. So it's just systemic, and poverty is generational, and poverty is stigmatized, and we have to get past that. We are human beings, and our most valuable resource, not only in West Virginia, in this country, is our people. And,
Hmm.
we need to look within ourselves and our hearts and realize and look at each other and realize that these people are in a big club and we're not allowed in it. And they don't care if we live or die. And if we don't stand up and fight for each other, they're going to continue to destroy our lives.
Let's talk for a second about the beautiful part of West Virginia, right? We have a few minutes left. I don't want to spend the whole thing on how much hardship there is. Talk about the incredible traditions and things that come out of West Virginia, the good side, the reason why the rest of this country and the rest of this world should be paying attention to what's happening in West Virginia.
Well, this is probably one of the most biodiverse regions outside the rainforest.
For
And West
sure.
Virginians, we're some of the most resilient people in the world, in spite of how we've been treated.
Hmm.
And if I ask, I tell this story all the time. If I ask my neighbor for a wrench, he doesn't ask me if I'm a Democrat or Republican. He brings that wrench and helps me.
Right.
We're hungry. We feed each other. People are right now, even in the middle of COVID or pre-COVID, they're filling their canning jars and they're sharing their crops. And they're sitting around their bonfires if they can, and they're playing their music. And there's just so much deep, deep uh, heritage here. And people are so prideful just because we've had to struggle so hard.
Mm.
And why, people around the country
But there's
want to
so much beauty
stigmatize.
that's come out of the struggle. I mean, I think about those
Yeah.
songs, all the coal mining songs, all the incredible Appalachian music, the dancing. I mean, it seems like it's not just. I think about New Orleans and Louisiana sometimes because Don Vappy, who's often on this program, say we celebrate at funerals because we turn our pain into something beautiful, and I see that so much in West
Turning
Virginia.
your pain into power.
Yeah,
Exactly right. And pain into unity. And
yeah.
I appeal to anybody. If you want to come and we'll feed you. We're hospitable people. We are stigmatized. I welcome you to come to West Virginia and meet the people here, because I've traveled across this country fighting for my state, and there ain't no place like home.
Well, Paul Jean, can you tell us how we can get involved with the campaign, and what's the thing that we can do now to help continue this struggle in the short term and in the long term?
It's a sacrifice. We still need those dollars. We're trying to, get some TV commercials, and we need phone bankers.
Hmm.
Anybody can get on the horn to reach the folks up in the hills and hollers. Right now we need that a lot in the most. So if you go to paulagene.com, you can donate. You can get sign up and get involved there. And I just want to take a second and thank everybody across the country. This campaign has been 100% people funded. We've raised over $1.5 million, and the average donation is
Wow.
$26.30.
Wow. That's an
And the
extraordinary
people in the
achievement.
West Virginia could have not afforded to fund a campaign of integrity. And if it wasn't for everybody across this country, this campaign wouldn't be what it is now. So I thank everybody for their heart, they're, giving up their dollars as well as their time and seeing West Virginia for what it really is.
Paul Jean, I think you're an exemplar of that integrity and of that movement, of that spirit. And I think that there will, I mean, you must give us a little bit of a forecast of because I think a lot of people with Joe Biden as the Democratic nominee for president, many people wanted someone much more progressive like a Bernie Sanders. I know I did. What do you see as the future of that progressive movement when we have someone who hopefully, right, either a Joe Biden, not Donald Trump, but when we have someone like a Joe Biden who is such a corporate and establishment Democrat?
Well, we still build in our communities, and we build on a federal level, especially with the United States Senate, especially with what we see with what's happening with the Supreme Court nominee.
Hmm.
We have to keep going. No matter who our president is, we have to have a good, strong Congress and Senate, but we also have to build in our communities and our states and build good local and state governments. So run for office, just like myself, all these people that have sacrificed and done it. It's not easy, but it can be done. We can put the government back into the hands of the people as long as we stick together and stay focused. I know sometimes it's easy to get discouraged,
Hmm.
but just to see this movement grow 10 years ago, working, as an activist, and where we are now. If you would have told me that we had 3 women that wasn't taking corporate PAC dollars, and every Democratic nominee would be a woman of integrity right now in West Virginia, I wouldn't believe you. So it can happen. And if you look at anything else, look at the example of that in this state, is we have 4 women of integrity. There are Democratic nominees. It's been 100 years since we've been voting. And, people say, oh, West Virginia is red. West Virginia, we're stigmatized. We're backward. Look at what's happening right now, at least in West Virginia. We've made history.
Paul Jean, you're doing the work. You're on fire. I wish you continued success. A remarkable interview and a remarkable case for why everyone should participate in this election in West Virginia. Thank you so much for being with us. And
Thank you, Josh.
I personally, sincerely hope you win this time. And if you don't, then you keep, because you're going to win. You have the most winning message and the most unbelievable way of putting it. So thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. And thank you for everything that you've done for our state and everybody across this country, too.
My pleasure. We'll be fighting shoulder to shoulder again sometime soon, I'm sure.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. You have a good evening. So you're tuned in to Staying Home, your revolutionary guide to the Green New Deal. That was Paula Jean Swearingen tearing it up. It's hard to listen to, but it would be impossible to listen to it without being moved. The incredible message of Paula Jean Swearingen. We thank her so much. We'll be right back. So from one of the strongest women politician activists in the world, Paula Jean Swearingen, out there in West Virginia, to one of the strongest female singers, Jolie Holland. Jolie, so great to have you on the program. Thanks for being with us.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
So you're on Anti-Records right alongside of one of my all-time heroes, Tom Waits, who nominated you for a prize. I think it's called the Shortlist Music Prize. Just talk about that. Why not? To start us off.
He's such a magician. I love him so much. I don't know. It's just a pure miracle. I got to meet him and Kathleen Brennan at a party. It was the sweetest thing in the world. Like, Kathleen screamed and hugged me and whatever. I mean, it's just it's so beautiful.
We've had a couple Tom Waits stories on this week because we had Mark Rebo on the program just a couple of days ago. So it's always good. I would love to have Tom Waits on this show, although I don't know if that'll ever happen. But I'm going to keep trying. But you're going to play a new song, right? And something that's unreleased. What's it called?
It's called "I Wrote You a Letter."
And what are you playing there? That looks like gorgeous.
Somebody made this guitar for me recently. A lot of known musicians have people make them guitars, but that never happened to me before. It's called Briar Road. It's so sick. It's this is purple hardwood. Beautiful. It's just it's purely amazing guitar. But it's just meant to be played at home. And
we're here at home.
It's just a little parlor guitar, so it's perfect.
Perfect for this show.
It's actually the first time I've ever played it on. Yeah.
Nice.
I've never played it on the internet before. Yeah. It's a Briar Road made by Nick Linsky, so I'm so pleased. All right, here's the song. I wrote you a letter at Charles jet lags and the baggage climb with hours to kill. I wanted you to feel my love, rising up like a phoenix on fire, undying essence of my deepest desire. Well, come on, it's morning and the earth is longing to feel the weight and beauty of your form. Well, come on, the hills themselves are hungry to hold the echoes of your songs. I appear before you as a revenant, freshly returning from a sacred war. Even our victories remain classified. I swore on scripture on the highest court, whispered your name, and then I testified that love is born on new and everything eternally. And now the captives are set free, the prison walls are rubble, and war is over. I tried to look into your green-brown eyes, but there was something between us that had gone awry. Tectonics shifting beneath the mountain. If I should lose you on these twisting streets, come back here and meet me at this fountain. Well, I cried. I'm round to ask the oracle to tell me how to make the sacrifice. And they said, child, the blood is running red enough and the temple. Go out and live your life. I stand before you in a revelry. I met you long ago on a series of dreams. We spent the whole night whispering. At dawn I felt the sun come rising in the west. The gods are good and they don't owe me anything. Well, come on. It's morning and the earth is longing to feel the weight and beauty of your form. Well, come on. The hills themselves are hungry to hold the echoes of your songs.
Wow, unbelievable. Is it? And what's the name of it?
It's called I Wrote You a Letter.
I wrote you a letter. The echoes of your songs. Talk about, and I know we only have a couple minutes left, but how you develop your vocal style, which is so distinctive and so resonant.
Well, I started out thinking I was going to be an artist, for no good reason other than that I was always one of the best visual artists in school, and I didn't get a chance to go to college or anything. I was a street kid. But I came from like art, and like learning about art history. So I really valued originality. I'm such an idiot. It never occurred to me that most people don't value originality. So,
well, what's funny about this is you said you didn't go to college. College can kind of destroy art. College, a lot of the artists that I've ever met were the way they were far before they got to college. You know what I'm saying? If they did at all, if they needed to or didn't.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I know, and I couldn't have afforded that MFA, so I'm glad I didn't.
Yeah. But so go ahead. You were saying.
Thanks for having me.
You're from the streets, and that's where the song came from?
No, I just valued creativity, so I was going for something, really individual, but we were like, street kids that went to the museum, like we really loved art, my little crew of weirdos.
So listening to yourself and listening to the weirdos.
Yeah, and just trying to go for something very individual. And I don't even have the technical language to describe how I sing, but one of my best friends, Jessica Kenny, is this amazing musical academic, and she said I have a mixed tone where I'm singing with like multiple registers at the same time, so whatever, I can't describe that.
Well, thank you. That was amazing. And we really look forward to listening to more and having you on the show again at some point. Thank you so much, Jolie Holland, for being with us today.
Thank you so much.
That was great. All right.
It's a pleasure.
That's our show for today. You've been tuned in to Staying Home, your revolutionary guide to the Green New Deal. My guests today, thank you so much to Paula Jean Swearingen and Jolie Holland. We'll see you again tomorrow.
You know what the progressive movement needs? It needs a little energy, a little pizzazz, maybe a little caffeine. Oh, coffee. But what if it was Too Strong Coffee? Yes, new TooStrongCoffee.com/TYT. Look, this helps progressive causes. It's also organic and fair trade, so you've got peace of mind that it was done right, and it happens to taste great. So check it out right now at TooStrongCoffee.com/TYT.
Each month we get closer to our fundraising goals at tyt.com/go. We're here to press on and carry on the work that we've been doing that's so important. We appreciate it so much when you help us to fight against social injustice, fight against corruption, to hold the government and the media accountable, and certainly corporations as well. We do this together. So let's build this progressive community together. Thank you for making us stronger and making the whole movement stronger. To make our voices heard, go to tyt.com/go.
Our generation actually has a voice to say who we want.
For the first time ever, we are the biggest voting bloc in America.
One of the people we've been talking about for months and months will be the President of the United States for the next 4 years.
And for a lot of us, this is the first time that we're ever going to vote.
Do you have any idea how much of a difference 4 years makes?
The action that we take right now doesn't just affect us right now.
Discussion is important, but words aren't the only thing. You have to take action.
So that we can actually affect real change instead of just talking about it.
Get out there and take a part in making a difference.
Every voice really does matter, whether young or old, especially young people. Get out there and vote, damn it.
Now, more than ever, we can make a change.
I'm going to vote because I want this country to be different.
I don't want the older generation to decide our future.
I want to make this world a better place for my son. You can make change.
Vote IRL. Vote IRL. Vote IRL.
Vote IRL.
Vote Earl.
Vote in real life.
Vote IRL.
Early voting is well underway all across the country, and we hope you've either already voted or have a plan in place to vote so that you know your vote will count. And while you're at it, let everyone else know how important it is that they get out and vote too, with a vote hat or a blue NAMI shirt or any of the other election-themed items currently available at shoptyt.com. Vote and let's make change happen now.
All right, well, the Young Turks special election day coverage dropping.
An amazing power panel.
Look at this panel. You want to talk about power?
Like a smart Destiny's Child.
We're all too strong. We start a revolution. Yes, another one. Aren't you excited? Wow. And then Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, everybody. Yay!
You know, this is where it started in a lot of ways.
Why is he lying? Because these are acts that you can commit with impunity.
Most of us are usually in boxer shorts underneath.
I went with the pants today.
This is the first ever power panel with Donald Trump as president.
We have elected the top Twitter troll in the country.
We have to stop pretending that race is not an issue in this country.
Now keep in mind, racism had gone away until Barack Obama brought it back.
That's right.
They want to protect life so much that they want to ensure that insurance companies don't cover your maternity care.
Turn your passions into potential investment opportunities. Whether it's cannabis, fashion, travel, video games, or anything in between, you tell us what you're interested in, and we'll help you uncover the investment potential. Introducing Doe, our newest partner. With Doe, you can be an owner, not just a consumer, with no fees to trade individual stocks. Doe provides your daily one-stop investment shop with lists of companies that relate to your personal interests, relevant news on your favorite stocks, and videos that unpack today's money-moving headlines in under 3 minutes. Go to doe.com/TYT and download today.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the conversation. Mark Thompson here for Cenk and for all the other hosts who have filled in for Cenk along the way. This is our COVID hut where we are, and it's sort of a guerrilla TV, but it's our pleasure to really have a couple of great guests for you. I'm so excited about talking to this first person because of her eminent qualifications for most anything you can imagine, and certainly to serve in the US Senate. And so quickly, let me welcome Dr. Merav Ben-David. I'll put my credibility glasses on so I don't mess up your intro. And I say that for a reason. I'm not just being cute. I mean, you really are a remarkably gifted academic, as well as it would seem a lot of those academics well applied to the state for which you'd like to be representative, and that's Wyoming. You got a PhD in wildlife management from the University of Alaska. You worked as a professor at the University of Wyoming. You've worked as a chairperson in the Department of Zoology and Physiology at the University of Wyoming. You were a wildlife researcher. You were the author of over 100 peer-reviewed publications as a wildlife researcher and tour guide. And I mentioned these things, and I've just skimmed it because when you think about Wyoming, you think about what a massive and stunning natural resource Wyoming is for America. And I, along with many other Americans, worry very much for the future of Wyoming. And I know that's where you live, and you're very worried about that future as well. So you bring that those eminent qualifications to this desire to represent Wyoming, and I welcome you to the conversation.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure being here. And indeed, you're right. There was a very significant reason why I came to live in Wyoming. And it was the environment, it was access to public lands, to open spaces, clean water and air. I lived in Alaska for 10 years before I took the job here in Wyoming. And I made the decision to come here. I had other job offers in other states. But the main reason I came here is because we have snow on the ground for 9 months of the year. And my main sport that keeps me sane is skiing and ski touring with dogs. So this is the place for me.
You talk about public lands. I know that in many of the materials and in many of the remarks that you've made publicly, you talk about how public land should remain public. And that's something that is threatened under this administration and other administrations. It's important for Wyoming to have strong representation, I would think, in that regard. That makes such common sense. But on the other hand, as I say, those lands are threatened.
Yes, as we've seen with the current administration, they have shrunk the sizes of monuments such as Bear Ears National Monument and Escalante National Monument, both of which are fantastic places that I've taken my students to before they were reduced in size. In fact, I have the last map of the original Bear Ears National Monument before they took away some of the protected lands. We cannot allow development to threaten one of the main resources that we do have here in Wyoming. It's not just that we like it emotionally, it's a very important emotional resource, of course, but it's also the source of revenue for our second largest industry, which is tourism. People come to Wyoming 12 months of the year. Like me, they like the outdoors. Like me, they like wildlife. Like me, they like, being able to ski and hunt and fish. So tourism is the second largest industry we have. And with the first one declining so fast, especially this year, the fossil fuel industry, we need to make sure that we keep the resource that funds us intact.
Well, how do you push back against such moneyed interest like the fossil fuel industry when it comes to Wyoming and it comes to so many of these lands in the West that represent, in their judgment, in the judgment of many Americans who feel we want to be energy independent? You hear all of these things. How do you push back against these huge, as I say, corporate and moneyed business interests?
So I don't have to push back against anything. I am looking at what's happening to us without any interference from actually what we do here in Wyoming. the global demand for coal, oil, and gas is declining. We are seeing it. We have seen it for decades. It's not anything new. I can't tell you how many budget cuts we've gone through here because of the reduced revenue from coal, especially. It's not anything that any Wyomingite says or claims or wants to push. This is happening. This is reality. My proposal or my vision is, okay, this is happening. We're gonna sit here and complain and drift away and fall off a cliff? Or are we going to come up with an alternative plan? A plan that will work for us? Because a very common saying we have here is, let's keep Wyoming, Wyoming. We have a certain character as a state and we want to keep it that way. A big part of it involves the outdoors and public lands. So the question is, how do we do this at a time where, we are losing our main source of revenue? And there are a lot of options. There are a lot of options that we should be pursuing and investing in that will create high-paying jobs, stable economy here in Wyoming.
I remember reading about a plan you had, the 3 R's or something like that. I'm sorry, I don't have it quite on, but you maybe you know to which I'm referring. This plan, it's quite specific in the road ahead that you plan for Wyoming.
Right. So it's rescue, reimagine, and rebuild.
Oh, it is the 3 R's. Okay,
the 3 R's. The rescue. Okay. Yeah, good memory. Yeah, rescue, reimagine, and rebuild. And a big part of the reimagine is those relying on these new technologies, these new innovations that are, I read about things every week, especially if you read the technology and scientific literature. That's what you see. The new proposals, new ideas. And what I try to do is find the ones that will fit Wyoming. So we have a lot of resources here, such as thorium, rare earth minerals, helium, that we have some of the best deposits in North America. We might need to leave coal and oil and gas in the ground, but that doesn't mean we have to leave the others in the ground. So I'm trying to find those technological innovations that will be suited for Wyoming, that we have the resources for in Wyoming, and that we will be able to use to pursue a new economy.
This is interesting because what I'm hearing and what you're saying is that there is a balance. There's a balance between those things that are associated with getting the resources out of the ground and taking advantage of natural resources that exist in Wyoming, while also respecting the land and respecting that delicate balance within the land, the ecosystem. That's why I'm really drawn to your profile, because I feel if anyone understands that balance, I'm talking about the ecological balance, the scientific, delicate balance of nature there in Wyoming, it's you. So you're saying, yeah, you strike that balance in the plan ahead in terms of using resources and taking care of those industries that still want to exist in Wyoming.
Taking care of industries that will support Wyoming workers. Yes, definitely. I talk to so many people and they're losing their jobs, and that's the last thing we want to happen. And so my plan is to make sure that we make a just transition. And not only that we attract industries that will make sure that our young people stay here. Right now, we are training, me included as a professor, we are training our human capital to be the best in the world. And then we don't offer them any opportunities here and they have to leave the state. In fact, we are the fastest aging state in the nation because our young people have nothing to do here and they have to leave. So it's all, it all comes back to the same idea that we want to protect Wyoming. We want to make sure it has a thriving future, and we want to make sure that we take care of the people here, and that's my goal.
Give us a sense of it. Have you been able to get media spotlight shown on you?
Yes, we have had the media, especially lately, and we had a debate, and the debate was very interesting. I recommend to people to go and look it up. We get media attention mostly locally, very little attention nationally. Thank you for highlighting my race. We have been endorsed by Joe Biden, Elizabeth Warren, and Ed Markey. So our campaign is getting national attention, maybe not from the media, but definitely from colleagues, which is great. We are very excited. Also, several environmental organizations have endorsed us as Sierra Club, Friends of the Earth. So we feel very, very good about that. The race is going good. You know, we have raised $500,000, all from grassroots, nothing from any big donors. We are forcing the opponent, Cynthia Lummis, to spend money. She had to spend $2 million this last month because she's threatened. And this is a very, very red state. You know, people think that we don't have a chance, but I think we do.
I want to encourage everyone to read more about you, Dr. Merav Ben-David, and you can see it at bendavid2020.com. It's Ben David, if you want to. I'm trying to give you the authentic Israeli pronunciation. bendavid2020.com, and you're at mbendavid2020 on Twitter, mbendavid2020. I think you're incredibly qualified. Is one of the reasons I was excited about speaking with you, and I love your environmentalism. I love how you embrace science, and I wish you the very best. Thank you so much for spending time with us on The Conversation.
Thank you, it's been a pleasure.
We get animated about the news. Yes, we're not the robots on TV. I actually care about the news. Guilty, I care.
Senator Sanders, I'm gonna do something unusual. I'm gonna ask you a policy question.
How dare you? That's the problem, you're the problem. Don't ever attack the Republicans. Where the is the liberal media? No, these are all establishment guys. They love the system as it is. They're all enormously rich off the system that exists.
For us, this system isn't working.
So what this campaign is about is trying to create an economy that works not only for the people on top, but works for all Americans.
We're gonna rock the boat. We're gonna be counter-establishment. We're gonna tell people the truth to the best of our abilities, and we're gonna keep it real with them.
It's winter, and it's cold this time of year, isn't it? Well, it might feel chilly, and the wind might bite at your nose. Maybe you want to snuggle up with a hot chocolate, or wrap up warm and wear your biggest coat. But in the grand scheme of things, our earth is too hot, and it's getting even hotter. Our seasons are getting confused. Lots of birds are nesting earlier, and spring flowers are coming out too soon. This is what climate change looks like. It's affecting so many of the things we love, both here in our own backyards and around the world. But we have hope, because we know that together we can protect them if we act now and everyone does their bit. So this Christmas, give a gift of love and show the world you care.
How in the world are you gonna get the right to vote if you don't already have the right to vote? That's impossible. Reason they tell you things are impossible is because they don't want you to try. It only took 7 years for them to get an amendment to get a right to vote.
Does this result in millions upon millions of Americans losing their coverage? And we've been waiting to find out, and now we know, yes, it will cut millions.
Public education was supposed to be the way to equalize everyone regardless of their socioeconomic status. But if you come from a family that's poor, how are you going to afford grade school for your kids?
This fight is about fairness and morality. It's about the American values.
You think that black people all across the country, in every city, were all lying when they said the police abuse us and the police kill us when they should? No, of course they weren't lying. Yes, it does happen. Yes, they do get targeted more.
Why are we going to put immigrants in prison for 5 years, which American taxpayers have to pay for, if we're so concerned with immigrants using up our so-called resources?
We're gonna do both. We're gonna fight Trump and we're gonna fight the establishment. It's not that hard. Yes, you can do both at the same time. Go tell them.
Early voting is well underway all across the country, and we hope you've either already voted or have a plan in place to vote so that you know your vote will count. And while you're at it, let everyone else know how important it is that they get out and vote too, with a vote hat or a Blue NAMI shirt or any of the other election-themed items currently available at shoptyt.com. Vote and let's make change happen now.
I'm really excited to have Kyle Kulinski on. You know Kyle Kulinski, if you know Kyle Kulinski through TYT, you know him through Secular Talk, which is his channel within the TYT network. And his takes are so clean, and he's legitimately one of the great progressive voices that's out there in the universe. And you can find him daily on YouTube with different takes on all the things that are going on and are so very relevant to life in America, particularly at this troubled time. Kyle Kulinski, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you so much for having me, man. I appreciate it. It's great to talk to you. And right off the bat, I just want to say I've never had my commentary described as clean, which I enjoyed. I like that very much. I think I'm going to steal that and use that from now on because I like that descriptor.
This is a time in our history that is so urgent, you know, and I wish the options for America were better, but they're not. And I'm sure for you, I mean, a true progressive, cutting edge progressive, it has to be a bitter pill to swallow to look at the, at the options. But I wonder if you can give us a minute or two on, sort of the state of the progressive movement and what we see in this election that's coming up.
That's a difficult question there. So the state of the progressive movement. Listen, I got to be honest. With the defeat of Bernie, that was a serious blow because we were this close to really getting power. Because had he won the nomination, I'm convinced it was a cakewalk to the White House. So, it hurt. It hurt a lot. And then, of course, after that happened, there's the postmortem and everybody weighs in on what they think is going on. And there's definitely not agreement on the left. I mean, I think overwhelmingly you're gonna see progressives, they're gonna vote for Biden in higher numbers than they voted for Hillary because Biden just doesn't have that X factor that people dislike about him as much. I think the votes for the Green Party won't be nearly as much as they were in 2016. So he'll get the votes, but in terms of the grassroots, I think the grassroots is more split in terms of where to go from here because it's difficult. A lot of people are saying after Bernie's loss that perhaps direct action is a better path, and electoralism has burnt us one too many times. So in other words, I think what they mean is, you go the path of a general strike, or you go the path of organizing outside of the political system and get more directly involved in the economic system, and maybe start worker-owned co-ops and things of that nature. But it's difficult, and there's no, unfortunately, to go back to what you said earlier, there's no clean answers to this, and we're all just trying to do as best as we possibly can moving forward. And I got to tell you, these days I have more questions myself than I do answers, and that's an uncomfortable place to be in.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable way to look at it because I feel the lessons of the last election where we sort of said, no, I won't swallow the pill of Hillary Clinton or whatever it might be, of the corporatocracy. I won't watch an election or a candidacy be stolen from me, or however, whatever arithmetic or version of that arithmetic was done. It left us with a presidency that's presented even greater challenges and a looting of the U.S. Treasury and a destruction of the environment that's irreparable in my judgment in many ways, in many places. And so this time we sort of feel like, all right, yeah, I guess I just gotta, I'm not running to the ballot box, but I'm gonna make it and I've got to do this thing. But understanding that still pushes forward a corporate agenda.
Yeah, and I spoke about this a little bit on my show that unfortunately, there's no substitute for winning, and we didn't win the primary. We could get into why and how that came about, but the fact of the matter is once you lose, there is no silver bullet. So there's some people who would say, listen, you just got to make a clean break from the Democratic Party, start a third party, build from the ground up. But even those people admit, like, well, obviously this is like a multi-decade plan. It's not like you're gonna all of a sudden create a third party, immediately get ballot access, immediately unrig the system and win the election now. So like it's a multi-decade process. So that's not a clean answer. But then at the same time, people who advocate, as I did, for taking over the Democratic Party, you acknowledge that that's also a really long battle and an uphill fight. And we have had our victories. There are plenty of Justice Democrats in Washington, D.C. now. There's a real left flank that has emerged. But fact of the matter is, it's also true that once you get to the swamp also changes you, even if you have the best of intentions. So, again, there's no substitute for winning. And I wish I could just press rewind, go back in time to when Bernie won those first 3 primaries, and just really steer that ship in a better way after it looked like Biden was edging ahead. Because I do think there were some arguments that Bernie could have made that were really politically potent that could have actually won him the primary. I mean, really, the die was cast as soon as Amy Klobuchar and Mayor Pete dropped out and threw their support behind Biden. And then Elizabeth Warren kind of stayed in, because then so many votes consolidated behind Biden, and Bernie's 30% chunk was no longer enough when previously it was enough. But I wish we could go back in time and, I could tell him, okay, here's what you do from here. You compare Joe Biden to Hillary Clinton. You say, hey, we ran the experiment of the safe choice and the safe choice didn't work. So let's learn our lesson here. And then of course, the pandemic and everything hit. There's never a better time for the guy who's running on universal health care to be like, I'm the only one with the answers here. Are we kidding? So, that's just a little bit, but we could get into more if you'd like.
No, and I love that you mentioned the pandemic, because I saw the pandemic as, look, it's an unmitigated horror. Don't get me wrong. I mean, across the board. But with that said, it's an opportunity for real political change. And as you say, I mean, for real institutional change, because people are desperate for not only something, but something that works in the area of healthcare. So you're right. I think that oddly, the pandemic would have represented a real progressive opportunity.
Yeah, it kills me that, just watching the debate the other night, you have Trump, saying, oh, Biden wants to kick you off your private insurance, 180 million Americans. And then Biden's like, no, I love private insurance. And I'm standing there like, oh God, no, you're supposed to say that's a mafia and I'm gonna get the mafia off your back and they're gonna stop price gouging you. And yes, I'm for socialized medicine because it works.
Right, but he's too busy saying, I love fracking. Don't worry, fracking's great.
Oh,
I mean, this is the frustrating thing when we talk about this. They say, and I don't know what Biden really loves. I don't know what any politician really loves. I mean, Trump loves Trump. I mean, what the hell? He's just kind of turned the keys over to the right. But that said, they have to say certain things and appeal to certain constituencies in order to win. This is the inherent failing, I think, of the system. I mean, not only are you do you have to pledge a sort of implicit fealty to money, but also to constituencies that need you to hang on to things, even if they make no sense, like fracking.
Yeah, I think it's the constituency thing, because honestly, on the actual policy issues, like 70% of the country is for Medicare for all. So when they're signaling against Medicare for all, what that is a signal to the donor class, to the for-profit health insurance companies, to the corporations and the billionaires, like, hey, I'm cool. Because that's not something that the voters want. It's not like the voters are like, please, I need to be close with Humana and Aetna. No, nobody cares about them as entities. They just rip us off nonstop. So I think it's the constituency thing that you said, where it's more about calming the nerves of the donor class. And the last thing that we need right now is a version of politics that appeases the donor class and doesn't really help the people, especially at a time like right now when everybody's hurting economically.
That's a real interesting thing that you mentioned, because you'd think if you're looking for votes, you would do, as far as coming in with positions, you'd express positions that are essentially consistent with polling. That's what the Clinton administration did when Bill Clinton was president, right? I mean, in essence, he would move his public policy, or at least his articulated public policy, along with the political wins. But that's not the way it works.
No, and you do see this widening gulf between public opinion and Washington, D.C., and even the messaging coming out of Washington, D.C. And it's at the point where it's almost like comical how out of touch they are. And I'm telling you, all you need is one politician. Let me run their campaign, and I'll have them, win over 35 states in a presidential election, because politics is not rocket science. You tell people what they want to hear. You lean into the things where you're popular. You don't touch the things where you're not popular. And then, you curb stomp your way to victory. And the way it works right now is we have two deeply unpopular politicians who are saying deeply unpopular things, but we're also in such a hyper partisan time that, it almost like Biden winning was purely an anti-Trump thing, where people were thinking, oh, he's the safe one, so I have to go with the safe one. And it's like we keep settling for less and less, and the results are horrific.
Find Kyle Kulinski. What a great way to stop. The results are horrific. Find Kyle Kulinski. Secular Talk is on YouTube. Check it out. As I say, constant updates, constant clean takes, as I was saying before, on so many different things. Kyle, I love your stuff. Love talking to you. I'd love to get you on the podcast, and we'll continue with this. But until then, I look forward to more from Secular Talk, and we appreciate you coming by today.
My pleasure, man. It was nice talking to you.
All right, so long. See you.
Bye.
That's Kyle Kulinski, and thank you all for stopping through. Until next time, bye-bye.
What are they doing? I want to know what people are actually going to do. My life is ruined. Does anybody understand how ruined my life is?
Oh, well, I'm sorry.
That I literally can't make a living anymore, even though I have a degree. I was valedictorian in college.
Check out the big brain on Brad.
These people don't understand. Like, my life is unlivable at this point in time. Like, what is the point?
Yeah.
Now I have to worry about getting murdered by leftists and Muslims.
You're despicable.
I'm sick of it. I don't want to listen to people tell me that I'm a conspiracy theorist. They don't know what it's like to be me.
Get out of politics and get another job.
Welcome to the Young Turks. Jake Ugranic is sparing with you guys. It is 8 days before the election. 8 days before we decide what is going to happen to this country. Anna, I am both incredibly excited and now nervous. And I'll tell you, the main reason I'm nervous is not necessarily the polling, although it has tightened in some places. I think Trump is doing everything wrong right now, luckily, and so I think it's going to expand again, as there's some indications it's happening right now. But God, never underestimate the ability of a Democrat to bungle things. Cross your fingers. Anyway, in about maybe 8 days, maybe 10 days, maybe 12 days, whenever the election is called, either you will hear these magical words: "Down goes." Oh, Anna, how good is that going to sound? If that happens, how good is that going to sound?
Sure. Yeah, that'll be great. Why do we play these games? We don't know what's going to happen. We're wasting time making these predictions. We have lots of news to get to. Let's just do our news.
Said the Queen of Salt.
I'm in a mood today. Yeah.
All right, hashtag Queen. I'll skip everything else. Let's go forward.
All right, let's do it. Oh, I love that. So we actually start off with some pretty depressing news. Nearly 225,000 Americans have already died from coronavirus. And Donald Trump's chief of staff, Mark Meadows, threw in a white flag during an interview with Jake Tapper over the weekend. Watch.
Your website is talking about, well, now we think the spread is coming from small social groups and family groups. First it was large groups, now it's small groups.
It's
now
coming from all sorts of places.
Well,
it's
that's
coming from all sorts of places because the pandemic's out of control.
So here's what we have to do. We're not going to control the pandemic. We are going to control the fact that we get vaccines, therapeutics, and other mitigation.
Why aren't we going to get control of the pandemic?
Because it is a contagious virus, just like the flu.
Yeah, but why not make efforts to contain it?
Well, we are making efforts to contain it.
By running all over the country and not wearing a mask?
Jake,
that's what the vice president's doing.
We can get into the back and forth. Let me just say this. Is what we need to do is make sure that we have the proper mitigation factors, whether it's therapies or vaccines or treatments, to make sure that people don't die from this. But to suggest that we're going to actually quarantine all of America, lock down our economy.
No one's saying that.
Well, they are. Joe Biden's saying that. He says lock everybody down. We're going to have a dark winter. We're going to have a dark winter.
That's what health officials say. That's what health officials say.
So there you have it. He says we're not going to try to control the pandemic. I think that was already pretty obvious based on the numbers that we've been experiencing here in the United States, especially compared to other developed countries. And again, 225,000 Americans, nearly that many Americans dead during this pandemic. And the Trump administration, to their credit, they do say the quiet parts out loud. On one hand, you'll have Scott Atlas engage in the motions of pursuing herd immunity, which could lead to as many as 4 million Americans dying from this pandemic. But then at the same time, denying that they're engaging in herd immunity or implementing that kind of strategy. And then you have Mark Meadows, again, saying the quiet parts out loud, saying that they're not going to try to control it. The administration continues to consistently disregard advice from government health experts, for instance, to wear masks, social distance, and avoid large gatherings as a way to curb the spread of the virus. Easy things to do. You don't even need to shut down the economy to do this. The White House is also facing a potential second outbreak. We're in the middle of it right now, or at the beginning of it, actually, of the virus after at least 5 people in Pence's inner circle have tested positive in recent days. And Pence is considered a so-called essential worker because he's essentially doing campaigning for Trump, and for the Trump administration, that's the most important thing he can do. So it doesn't matter that he's been around people who have the virus. He's still doing campaigning. The administration is still refusing to take this coronavirus seriously, and so more Americans will die as a result.
Okay, so first of all, let's clarify Mike Pence being an essential worker. That's what Mark Meadows claimed in that interview. He could be an essential worker as the head of the coronavirus task force, but he could do that remotely while quarantined. But that is not what he's doing. He is going and campaigning as vice president to get reelected. What part of that is essential? It's essential maybe for his career, for Donald Trump's ego, but that is not an essential health worker or an essential worker in any other definition. So, and it's much more dangerous because he's now going in front of crowds without masks, even though 5 people on his team now have tested positive for coronavirus, including his chief of staff. So they couldn't find a better way to advertise how little they care about you. So now let's go to Mark Meadows. When I saw the headline that he said, we're not gonna try to contain it, I thought, I wonder if it's taken out of context, because that, even for this White House, that seems so insane, right? So I watched the whole thing, and he does say, hey, we're gonna do the vaccines and the therapeutics, et cetera, and that's in almost all the media stories. But over the course of at least 6 minutes of that interview, about 4 times he's downplays the idea of trying to control or contain the disease through masks. So it was not taken out of context, and it was completely accurate to what he was trying to say, which is we'll treat the disease, but basically we're not going to try to contain the disease. We've given up. So hey, it spreads like the flu, it spreads like the cold. Now you could take measures, but we have chosen not to. And when asked why, over and over by Jake Tapper, he kept saying freedom. We don't want to take away people's freedoms when they come to the events for Donald Trump, the rallies. We make everything optional. We don't require masks. Pence wears the mask, he said, sometimes, and he doesn't wear it other times. Trump never wears it now. And Tapper clarified, so you're telling Americans to follow the CDC guidelines, but you guys are clearly not following the CDC guidelines yourself. And he had no answer for that. His answer was, we're not trying to control the disease or contain it. We're trying to just treat it afterwards. Okay, that is giving up. And it's a stunning thing to say 8 days before an election, unreal. So, and I also want to show the graphs here, because I want people to understand what we're talking about when we say it's raging now. It's not, hey, this is the 3rd time around and it's another bump up. No, this is the highest it's ever been in the whole 11 months. So over the last 7 days, they do a 7-day average. It is the highest 7-day average since the beginning of this year, since we ever found out that there was a coronavirus. So you remember the huge spike in March and April? Well, you see it there, there's the April spike, right? That you remember that as a huge April spike, right? No, but actually the July-August spike was worse, and now the October spike is even worse. This chart right here is what incompetence looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. And what you'll hear from the Trump administration, it's been a line that has been used for months now, is that the reason why the United States looks so bad is because we just do a better job than anyone else when it comes to our testing, but that's not the case. So if you take a look at the daily coronavirus tests per capita, so this accounts for the difference in populations in all these countries, the United States is not the best when it comes to testing. We're all the way at the bottom of this list. Luxembourg, the UAE, Bahrain, Spain, Singapore, Belgium, the UK, Ireland, Russia, all of these countries perform more tests per capita than the United States. And this is according to data from Johns Hopkins University. Now, if you look at daily coronavirus cases, these are new cases, the United States is at the top of that list. It does not look good. This is the 7-day average. The United States is above 61,000 new cases per day. And if you look at the total COVID deaths per capita, we're pretty high up there, although there are a bunch of countries that are ahead of us, or not in a good way, obviously, in the number of coronavirus deaths per capita: Peru, Belgium, Bolivia, Brazil, Spain, Chile, Ecuador, Mexico. And then you have the United States with 68 COVID deaths per capita. But remember, we're talking about the richest country in the world with so many resources that could be utilized in order to keep people safe. And just a simple campaign that encourages people to wear masks when they're out in public, encourages people or discourages people from gathering in large groups. The Trump administration is incapable of doing any of it. Donald Trump believes, and he has said this He has said it explicitly during an interview with the Wall Street Journal. He believes that when people wear masks, it makes him look bad. It goes back to his own vanity, and it shows that he has absolutely no regard for people's lives. What he cares about first and foremost is how he appears. Even when he knows that discouraging people from wearing masks means more people are gonna die under his watch, but he doesn't care. He doesn't care.
Okay, so let's be fair and share the per capita numbers across the board. So yes, overall in raw numbers, we're #1 in most cases in the world and #1 in most deaths in the world. Now, obviously, there are more populous countries than us, like India and China, but we are among the more populous countries. So what is it per capita? Well, both in cases and deaths, we're number 9. Hey, that's better than #1, as in the worst. But that means we're 9th worst out of over 200 countries. Not out of 10 countries, not out of 20 countries. We're 9th worst per capita in both cases and deaths out of over 200 countries. So yes, all those countries, Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, Uruguay, you name it, it doesn't matter. We're 9th worst per capita. And so we do a lot of testing. But Anna showed you the per capita testing. But other countries like Singapore, which has done a fantastic job of containing the disease, they test 10 times as much as we do. So then finally, Trump says, well, we do a lot of testing. We're among the leaders in testing, right? Okay, then he's implying that that is why we have so many cases. All right, now let me break that down for you real quick. So guys, if it was because of the testing that we are reporting more cases, the more testing we do, our percentage of people who have coronavirus to the number of people who have been tested would go down. Because we're testing so many people, you'll have a lower and lower percentage of cases if the number of cases are not really that high, right? But recently, the number of cases per test has gone up, not down. And that means no matter how much you test, we're getting a higher percentage of people testing positive because tons and tons of people actually have it. And so now they're starting to get overloaded in El Paso, Texas. These are the hospitals and healthcare providers. And in Utah, and guess where the worst outbreaks are? The Dakotas, #1 and 2, North Dakota and South Dakota. What happened in the Dakotas? Oh right, that biker rally, the Sturgis, and they were all tough guys and they didn't wear masks. Oh, we don't need no stinking masks, we're not gonna get coronavirus. Oops, they got it. A lot of them got it. That's why North Dakota and South Dakota are #1 and 2. By the way, Montana's in the top 5, Idaho's at the top. Gee, I wonder what happened right around there. Minnesota's near the top because of them. Because if you don't wear masks, the disease goes out of control. And now, the Trump administration has come all the way back around to go, yeah, so what? We're gonna let this disease that has killed 225,000 Americans rage out of control and hope to treat it at a later time.
Yeah, it's just absolutely devastating. And what's devastating is even when members of their own administration suffer the consequences of their disgusting anti-science message, they still don't make any changes, which takes me to our second story on Mike Pence. So, several of Vice President Mike Pence's staffers have tested positive for coronavirus, but Pence refuses to self-quarantine, even though the CDC indicates that he should self-quarantine. He claims that he and his wife have taken coronavirus tests and they've tested negative. So as a result, as a so-called essential worker, he's going to run around and do campaigning for Trump in several different states. So at least 5 people in Vice President Mike Pence's orbit have tested positive for coronavirus in recent days. That includes his chief of staff, Mark Short, close aide, Zach Bauer, and outside advisor Marty Obst. Short has been a key aide involved in the US coronavirus response. He has been reported to have advocated for an economy first approach to the pandemic. He has also been one of the driving forces in the Trump administration to basically discourage listening to Dr. Anthony Fauci or any of the advice he has in regard to the pandemic. Now, Donald Trump's chief of staff, Mark Meadows, recently had an interview with Jake Tapper where he indicated that they believe that that Mike Pence truly is an essential worker. Let's watch.
Short is now positive for the virus.
That's correct.
So CDC guidelines say that Vice President Pence should quarantine for 14 days. Now, I understand the White House is trying to get around that by saying the vice president is an essential worker. But Mark, how is going all over the country, how is that campaigning? How is that essential work? It's not like he's helping to contain the virus. In fact, the opposite, he's holding rallies that could be spreading the virus.
Well, actually, he's not just campaigning, he's working.
He was at a campaign rally in Tallahassee. He was just in a campaign rally in Tallahassee.
I'm not saying he's not campaigning. I'm saying that is only part of what he's doing. And as we look at that, essential personnel, whether it's the Vice President of the United States or anyone else,
but he's not
has to continue on.
CDC guidelines.
Well, no, Jake, CDC guidelines does say essential personnel.
Yes, it says wear a mask. If they wear a mask.
And I spoke to the Vice President last night at midnight. And I can tell you that what he's doing is wearing a mask, socially distancing, and when he goes up to speak, he will take the mask off, put it back on.
This is all about helping Donald Trump campaign and nothing more. It's not about doing essential work. Essential work would actually be sitting down, listening to members of the CDC, listening to Dr. Anthony Fauci, and carrying out their guidelines, encouraging Americans to wear masks and keep themselves safe during this pandemic. Pence has engaged in none of that, 0% of that. The essential work that they're referring to is campaigning, and I'll give you the specific examples. Pence, for instance, is going to Minnesota on Monday and back to North and South Carolina on Tuesday. He's also expected to return to the upper Midwest this week. The official said Pence would continue to be tested, but like Trump, still plans to be on the road every day for the next week. And of course, he's rarely seen wearing a mask while he's doing this. So, Cenk, take it away.
Yeah, well, how about the Biden-Harris team? There was an outbreak of 2 people on Harris's team that got this a little bit earlier. Oh yeah, she stopped campaigning. Is Pence going to do likewise? Of course not. And look, I think they fundamentally don't understand simple facts, even when it comes to their own health. I mean, Trump keeps saying, even after he got coronavirus, I learned a lot when I got coronavirus. You should have learned a lot on our behalf 10 months ago. Anyways, but then he goes on to say, I got treated, some say a cure. No one says a cure. You're an idiot. You don't know a thing. So Mike Pence keeps saying, no, it's okay, I'm getting tested. No, I know that's good. Then you know whether you got it or you didn't. But that getting tested doesn't mean you prevented it. I mean, do you not? It's possible they don't understand really simple things like that. Testing is after the fact to see if you have it. The test doesn't prevent you from getting it. I don't think they even understand that. They're incredibly dense. And of course, whatever they do understand, now if you're MAGA and you go, no, they get it, man. They just want to spread it to us, but they're smart enough to understand they're spreading it. Wait, how's that better? We showed you that video of a rally there. Almost nobody had masks. They're all scrunched up next to one another. I mean, this is Darwinism on steroids. If Darwin was around to see this, he'd be like, hashtag told you. Okay, but
Jake, but the one thing that I wish people would understand is if Mike Pence gets coronavirus, it's not like he's gonna show up to an overcrowded hospital and they're gonna tell him to F off because they don't have the resources to take him in and treat him. That's what average Americans are gonna deal with, and that's assuming they have healthcare coverage and feel comfortable walking into a hospital without having to deal with bankruptcy later. So the point that I wish people overall, average Americans would understand is that the world that these people live in, that Trump administration officials live in, is very different from the world that average Americans live in. If you get sick in El Paso and you're an average American, you show up. It's very likely right now, considering how overwhelmed their hospitals are at the moment, that you'll get turned away, that there's no way that you're gonna get the treatment you need. And that's again, assuming that you have healthcare coverage. Let's say you don't have healthcare coverage and you're lucky enough to get taken in by a hospital that isn't overwhelmed, you're very likely gonna deal with bankruptcy later on. I mean, we live in a different world than members of Trump's administration. They're so brazen about their disregard for human lives. It's unbelievable to me, it absolutely is.
Okay, now speaking of El Paso and Utah. Let me read you a quote from how Utah is handling the overflow at their hospitals. Quote, this is from, here, I'll give you the source in a second. It's from a local paper. He said, they said, under the proposed rationing criteria, patients who are getting worse despite receiving intensive care would be moved out first. People who are getting worse would be moved out of intensive care first. Why? Because they're already going to die. Hold on, let me keep reading. And back to the quote. If two patients' conditions are equal, the young get priority over the old, since older patients are more likely to die. That's a literal quote. That's from the Salt Lake Tribune. Guys, do you know what that is? That's a death panel. Literally. And I don't blame the hospitals, and I don't blame them for asking for guidance from the Utah state government or the federal government. I'm overflowing. I do not have enough beds. I do not have enough doctors and nurses. I've got to prioritize. Tell me who I should let die and who I should try to save. So that is a fair question under the circumstances. But the government has gotten so bad, so incompetent, so inept, and now Mark Meadows declaring, no, we're not going to try to contain the disease, that they've got to give them guidance on who to put on a death panel. So that, I mean, after they made up a thing called death panels about Obamacare and pretended they cared so deeply about it, now we have actual death panels in the country under Trump. They're like, who cares, man? Just let him die, from the pro-life party. The herd immunity idea, don't wear masks, we'll all get it and eventually it'll go away, means yes, when we all get it, a certain percentage will die. We've already had a couple 100,000 die, that means a lot more people will die. And it's a death panel, so what? We'll ration the care. Now, on top of all this, you still have Republicans, some corporate Democrats, and almost all of the media asking Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, are you guys socialists? Are you in favor of socialized medicine? Wait, are you in favor of privatized medicine? Privatized medicine is, along with the inept Trump administration, is what's killing these people in the first place. So if you don't understand, guys, this is so important. Not only do I want you to know this, but I want you to go tell your family members and friends this, because it's true and you could look it up for yourself. The rest of the world, as they're dealing with coronavirus, they don't have to worry about paying for tests, treatment, or any of that. They just show up and they get treatment because they have socialized medicine. Everybody gets treatment. Here in America, well, do you have the money? You don't have the money? Go die. You have another issue? Well, we're not containing it anymore. Go die. Oh, I didn't make a profit off of you staying alive. Go die. The rest of the world thinks we're barbaric. You're going to tell me that there's somebody's got coronavirus and you're going to reject healthcare for them? And we go, yeah, sure, why not? The rest of the world goes, you guys are nuts. You let your own citizens die that way? They're like, but we go, yeah, but we protect them by spending all of our money on the defense industry. What are you talking about? Who's invading America? So you wasted all of your money on tanks and missiles and all these things that you never even use. And when people are actually dying by the hundreds of thousands inside your country, you just let them die. Yep. So this system we have here is absolutely immoral and barbaric. Yes, we need to have universal health care like the rest of the civilized world, and that is not where we are. So which then, when we're talking about non-civilized world, leads me to Fox News. So Fox News has a contagion, coronavirus spreading throughout the building. Say it with me. Of course it is. Now their top anchors are having to quarantine. Where did they get it? They got it while covering the last debate. And was it because they might have been exposed to Republicans? Likely, yeah. All the Democrats wear masks. The Republicans don't wear masks. Fox News covering the debate gets coronavirus. Gee, I wonder where they got it from. Now, it could have been from something else. It could have been at the airport, etc. But it could not have been on a plane that they were sharing with others, because one of my favorite parts of this story is they apparently got sick on their private jet on the way back to New York, due to Claire, okay? Well, that must be nice. Well, it would turn out not to be so nice, because then they spread it to one another and they're all gonna have to quarantine. So the guys who are quarantining now are the president of Fox News Media, Jay Wallace. enjoy this irony. Chief political anchor Brett Baer, Martha McCallum, Dana Perina, Juan Williams. Now, do we wish ill on any of them, their staffers or the people quarantining? I'm not saying the people whose names I read are quarantining. They haven't tested positive for coronavirus yet. They're getting tests now. So do I wish them poor health? Of course not. And especially because there are people like Juan Williams in there who've been fighting the good fight, trying to tell the Fox News audience, you guys are nuts. And he got exposed as well. The staffers, God knows what their political affiliations are. And I feel terrible for them. But for the folks on air who kept telling people it's not a big deal, now it turns out they got to quarantine themselves in the middle of this election. It's hard to feel a tremendous amount of sympathy for them. I'll quote the president who they love so much. It is what it is.
All right, we'll be back.
Across the map are going to be so tight and so close that it is likely going to be very difficult to call this on election night.
The twin forces behind the Biden candidacy, the billionaires and the Bolsheviks.
Arizona, 19 million. For the vice president, 9 million, a little over 9 million for President Trump.
We are desperate for Donald Trump to not be president anymore because he's fascist and is a threat to our democracy. And we said that from day one. Yes, we want Biden to beat Trump. Is that clear enough?
It is increasingly difficult for the American public to get any sort of truth.
And this is why what Cenk and the Young Turks are doing is so important.
You want to know how you could save money and save the planet? Hello, I got an awesome option for you guys. Aspiration.com/TYT. You plant not 1, not 5, 10 trees when you sign up. You know what trees do? Not a big deal, but one large tree can provide a day's supply of oxygen for up to 4 people. That's 40 people's oxygen just by signing up at aspiration.com/TYT. Sign up for a free spend and save account right now at aspiration.com/TYT. Early voting is well underway all across the country, and we hope you've either already voted or have a plan in place to vote so that you know your vote will count. And while you're at it, let everyone else know how important it is that they get out and vote too, with a vote hat or a blue NAMI shirt or any of the other election-themed items currently available at shoptyt.com. Vote and let's make change happen now. Like all small businesses, we're struggling through this pandemic right now. We are doing a drive to keep TYT healthy. We want to be able to keep doing it, and it's been a Herculean task.
Ready for transport.
We're trying to raise $2 million overall, $200,000 a month if we can. If you can, and only if you can, tyt.com/go. Seriously, because we can't sustain this show without you. So thank you for making all this possible.
Where else can I feel as free as I do here to do what I do? And I wouldn't be able to do what I do if it weren't for all the people who have really carried us throughout the years.
You're our ultimate boss. We report to you guys, and if you don't like what we're doing on air or we're not telling the truth, boom, you fire us. We're not the Young Turks, you're the Young Turks. Keep TYT alive, healthy, wonderful, awesome, independent, progressive, keep it all those things. In fact, we have a new theme, press on. Get it? It's a double meaning. tyt.com/go. I know what you're thinking. Cenk, where do I get unlimited, commission-free stock and ETF trades? Man, do I have good news for you. Doe.com/TYT. Yes, it's really unlimited trading. Yes, it's totally commission-free. Yes, they explain what an ETF is if you don't know it. But that's what's great about Doe, because they have wonderful explainer videos, and you got the 0 minimum balance. You got nothing for commissions. Doe.com/TYT.
Today, terrible day for the internet, terrible day for America. The internet as we know it is not going to exist anymore.
A real dark day for information, and yet another way that they're bleeding out the democracy.
We're now going to have these gatekeepers of information deciding what we can and can't see, and that's what scares me the most.
Whether you're conservative or progressive or anywhere in the middle, this is the one thing we should all agree to. Protect the internet, because the establishment is coming for it. Don't let them destroy the internet. All right, back on the Young Turks, Cenk and Anna with you guys. As folks have said, a dark winter is coming, and luckily we've got you guys on our side and a couple of sponsors that have stuck with us through thick and thin. As part of why we're going to do this Aspiration Fund contest. After the election, I'm going to get together with 4 of you that have Aspiration accounts. It's just a private meeting / call, obviously, in these times. And we're going to talk about what happened in the election, and we're going to talk about what the strategy is for progressives going forward. So if you already have an Aspiration account, you don't have to do anything. You automatically get entered. If you don't yet, aspiration.com/TYT. And then when you get an account, we plant 10 trees. You get entered into this contest so that you and I can talk after the election. And they keep planting trees, by the way, the more you use the account, and they never put your money in fossil fuels, and they have great rates. So check it out, aspiration.com/TYT instead of a traditional bank. All right, and then I wanted to see where you guys are in TYT.com/go. That's what has kept us healthy, sustainable, and intact this year. $95,004, that's wonderful. We're trying to get to 200,000. So, every amount helps. If we get to 96,000 before the end of the show, that would be amazing. That helps keep us in business and all the folks that are working here. Speaking of which, let me read some wonderful names that just signed up on YouTube. Melissa Streeter, John Dillon, essentially Angelin, all just signed up, and Jazz T upgraded by hitting the join button below. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching anywhere else, tyt.com/join. Speaking of anywhere else, on Twitch, we got Ford Prefect who just signed up as a sub, and Iryman, Trimu, Batiki, and Depressed Progressive all donated bits, which again, all of this makes a huge difference. So thank you guys from the bottom of our hearts. Time for just one comment. Ryan Walton using Super Chat said, telling people to wear a mask is taking away your freedom, but you wear a seatbelt to save lives and protect yourself. What's the difference? And of course, the reality is there is no difference. And by the way, back then, conservatives fought wearing seatbelts. They thought it should not be mandatory and that we should allow people to fly out of their cars, through their windshields, and onto the pavement head first. They were wrong then, they're wrong now. Since we didn't listen to them, we saved literally millions of lives. All right, Anna, back to you.
Anna, you're muted.
I was muted. I'm not anymore.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I didn't know whether I couldn't hear you. Yeah, I couldn't tell if I couldn't hear you or if the whole country.
Mark Zuckerberg did it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, sorry, my mic was muted, okay? Mark Zuckerberg did not do it. Let's talk about Santa. So, Health and Human Services scrapped a strange coronavirus program involving Santa Claus performers, wasting $250 million in taxpayer money. Now, the brainchild of this project was Michael Caputo, who's still on a 60-day medical leave because he spouted insane conspiracy theories. But let me tell you about what this plan entailed. HHS Assistant Secretary Michael Caputo wanted the Santa performers to promote the benefits of a COVID-19 vaccination, and in exchange offered them early vaccine access ahead of the general public, according to audio recordings. Those who perform as Mrs. Claus and elves also would have been included. Now, there were some issues here. And the main issue was that while this might seem like a public health PSA coordinated, PR stunt, really at the heart of what was going on was more pro-Trump campaigning. And so officials kind of figured out what was going on. They scrapped the project. Again, Caputo is still on a 60-day medical leave, but here he is saying that Santa Claus performers are essential workers who are incredibly important to this cause. Listen.
It's quite clear that frontline essential workers, health workers, will be among those vaccinated early. And from my perspective, if you and your colleagues are not essential workers, I don't know what is.
I love you.
So the person you heard.
That was real, by the way. That was real.
No. It was real. No, but okay, let me just say the person who was ho-ho-hoing, he sounds like a lovely gentleman. His name is Rick Irwin. He's the chairman of the Fraternal Order of Real Bearded Santas. I just love that that's a thing and it exists. And I love that Santa Claus performers have some representation. Like that genuinely makes me happy. But anyway, Caputo's insane. And finally, HHS realized what was going on. They had to scrap the project, but they wasted $250 million in taxpayer money on the project before it was scrapped. It's just out of control. I have more details, but Cenk, why don't you jump in?
Yeah, so first of all, on the Santas, they wanted to make sure that they get them out there by mid-September. Santas in mid-September. Wouldn't it make sense to get people the vaccine information? Because that was supposed to be the heart of it, the vaccine information. Number one, when the vaccine comes out. It hasn't come out yet. And number two, around the time that you would normally see Santa. Gee, I wonder why they wanted it in September and October instead. What happens right after October? Oh, and November 3rd, there's the election. I'm sure that had nothing to do with it. They just wanted Santa to get out there early. Early Santa gets the worm. So look, I don't know whether to make light of it or not, because normally the fact that Michael Caputo is on leave for having a mental breakdown is not something you'd be lighthearted about. But they're treating Caputo's ideas like they weren't mental. And to be fair to Caputo, I don't know why Trump's not on the same leave. Trump says the same things as Caputo. Trump believes the same conspiracies as Caputo. And Caputo said, oh my God, Trump's gonna love the Santa idea. Does anyone think that he wouldn't have loved the idea of Santa coming out in October to tell people that there's a vaccine when there isn't one? So, I mean, then you really got to break a couple of different pieces of news to your kids about the vaccine and Santa.
So there were several things wrong with this plan. Number one, there's no vaccine, and he was planning as though a vaccine had already been approved, and he had promised that the Santa performers would be able to get early access to the vaccine if they take part in this project. And so, I mean, it was a win-win for the performers, and it really did get their hopes up, because keep in mind, because of coronavirus, they're worried about their livelihoods. They're worried about whether or not they're gonna get the seasonal work that many of them rely on. And so this got their hopes up when it came to that, but it also got their hopes up in regard to having early access to a vaccine, which again, doesn't quite exist yet. There are some promising studies being done right now, some promising updates on it, but we still don't have a firm date or a firm vaccine to rely on. Also, the coronavirus ad effort titled COVID-19 Public Health and Reopening America Public Service Announcements and Advertising Campaigns, it was very lengthy, was intended to defeat despair, inspire hope, and achieve national recovery. It was to include television, radio, online, and podcast announcements starting immediately. But as I mentioned earlier, and we did talk about this story, at least a portion of this story earlier,
there were celebrities who were supposed to take part in this, including Dennis Quaid, and they ended up dropping out once they realized that this was really more about pro-Trump campaigning than it was about spreading accurate information for public health reasons. In fact, here's Dennis Quaid getting real salty about it in an Instagram video.
So I did a PSA for Dr. Anthony Fauci, and he was kind enough to grant me an interview as well. And the interview and PSA were about raising awareness of COVID-19 and what we can still do to prevent lives being lost by this terrible, terrible virus. It was about the importance of wearing a mask, about social distancing, and it was in no way political. In fact, Dr. Anthony Fauci and I both talked about it before, that it was not to be political. This virus is not political. I was not paid 1 penny for doing this interview, and neither was Dr. Anthony Fauci. I am really disappointed that some people who call themselves legitimate reporters don't do their homework.
Okay, Mr. Quaid, but like I get that in his mind this was all about, and I'm sure he had no idea that this was really meant to put out pro-Trump propaganda ahead of the campaign. I'm positive he had no idea that that was really the heart of this whole project. But the Trump administration is known for pulling these kinds of tricks. Instead of getting angry at the media, maybe get a little frustrated at the lack of communication between you and whoever was communicating with you from the Trump administration. But anyway, he's not at fault. Dennis Quaid is not at fault. He thought he was doing a kind thing, a good thing, and unfortunately he got the short end of the stick. So I don't want anyone to get upset with him, but this is the kind of stuff, these are the types of stunts that members of the Trump administration pull all the time. And again, I'm gonna just mention that $250 million figure, because while you have right wingers nickel and diming the American public when it comes to coronavirus relief, they're just throwing money away at nonsense like this. It's just infuriating.
Yeah, so first of all, on Dennis Quaid, I'll double down on he didn't do anything wrong. And he said later, people saying this was to help Trump, nothing could be further from the truth. So that's an interesting indication. And certainly, if you're him and you're talking to Fauci, you don't necessarily think you're doing anything political at all. But one of the reasons why people are getting on him is because I think they're confusing him for his brother. Randy Quaid is full-blown mental and supports Donald Trump 120%. So, I mean, if you've ever seen any of Randy Quaid's videos online, you're like, whoa, what in the world happened to that guy? So Dennis Quaid's got to be super frustrated given the situation and what people are assuming about him. But and I keep using the word mental here, and people will say, "Oh, hey, Cenk, is that right?" or whatever. But guys, there's a giant percentage of this country, 30 to 40% of the country, who are following people with literal mental breakdowns. Whether it's Caputo, it's Roseanne Barr, Glenn Beck, Randy Quaid, Rudy Giuliani, Donald Trump, Kanye West, you name it. And then they, so if people were not taking them seriously and they were getting them mental health counseling, I'd be the first one in line to say, yes, let's get them help, right? But when they say, no, they're not crazy. Randy Quaid and Donald Trump and Giuliani have it figured out. And it's because the fake media is creating a COVID, as Trump is saying. And they won't, maybe I should make it illegal for them to talk about it. Well, if you're gonna say that, well, then I'm gonna call you mental. And so don't pretend that these people don't have mental health problems when they clearly do. You keep pretending it, I'm gonna keep pointing it out. Now back to the program, finally, look, $250 million is a giant amount of money. Even for the government, that's a huge amount of money. And don't get it twisted. If they actually had a vaccine and they were doing real public service announcements to tell people how to take it and how to be safe about it, there'd be nothing wrong with that. The problem here was it turned out that it was just propaganda for Trump. And when people realized that, they're like, no, you're not allowed to do that. You can't pretend to be helping people with a vaccine that doesn't even exist. in order to do Trump commercials right before the election. Not only is that ethically wrong, it's actually also illegal. It's a violation of the Hatch Act. I'm sure to which Trump said, so what? I'm above the law. They impeached me, and those Senate Republicans, they're my dogs. And they told me I could break any law I like, so I broke that one too. Well, that's true. They are your dogs, and they do allow you to break any law you want. It still doesn't make it right, and people should not participate in it.
When we come back from the break, Amy Coney Barrett is currently getting confirmed to the Supreme Court. We'll give you updates on that and more. Come right back.
Are you a politician with a ridiculous point to make? Are you in need of a petulant, outdated way to make it? Then you'll need one of my signs. Hi, I'm Simon Simonson of Simonson Signs. We'll take the stupid, over-the-top, meaningless allegory you have and put it on foam core. So maybe someone will notice your grandstanding, because this is C-SPAN. And anything that's not people milling around in front of a running vote count is almost considered moderately entertaining. The bar is low, just like our prices. We've got plenty of designs. We also brought you Mike Lee's Tauntauns. They're tons of fun. What does this have to do with the Green New Deal? About as much as this other visual aid he used of Reagan on a T-Rex. Or is that a velociraptor? Who cares? Who the cares? No one gives. Call us now at Simonson Signs. We'll make your stupid point stupidly for money today.
Viewers had asked for an interview with the TYT Lizard. Mr. Lizard. Oh, you changed colors today. Nice. I don't even know how you feel about us. Do you even like us?
Well, you guys made me this awesome house, so I'm kind of in your debt. I was found outside on the street, and you gave me a home. Granted, it was a really crappy home for a while, but then through the power of fundraising, I became a person who has a multi-level Trump-style mansion.
You do. By the way, you never looked better, man. Normally, you're just green or just brown, but today you're in mid-lizard, right?
I'm not very smart. I'm a lizard, so I don't know how the science works. I guess this is just my mood. It's not every day that thresholds like this are broken. I'm just so excited. I can't contain my pigmentation.
And now you're showing it off.
Yep.
Yeah, I've never seen the lizard like this before.
That's 300 million. That's a pretty good number. We were doing a press release on it, and I got all worked up. And I said, okay, well, that's the size of the US population. You know what our next target is? The size of the entire world on the road to 6 billion. Although by the time we hit it, it'll probably be 7, maybe 8 billion.
Not a big deal. A couple of days ago on the TYT network, we passed 1 billion views.
What the hell?
What the hell?
That's a big freaking deal.
2 billion views.
What now?
Sorry.
What did we do? 2 billion?
2 billion.
They said it couldn't be done, but it was done.
We just crossed 5 billion views on YouTube.
I mean, imagine 10 years ago thinking one day.
We looked at you like, are you nuts? Young Turks crosses 6 billion views.
Young Turks has just passed another milestone, 10 billion views.
Damn.
I just shot a clip. It's time sensitive and it needs to be edited right now.
Did anybody call for an editor?
Need this in an hour.
But you're an editor too.
Turks, Cenk and Anna with you guys. There's only 8 days left before the election. Obviously, come here for election day, not just night, but election day. It might turn into election week, but it starts at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. John Iadarola is going to kick it off, and we are going to be here throughout the day. And most of our hosts are going to join us throughout the day as well. It's going to be amazing. I know conservatives are going to tune in, so progressives should as well. So can't wait. Come and see. Now I'm going to go to you guys, the members. Charlie said, "What a horrible idea." Progressive Pirate said that the Santa sounded like Cenk. Some truth to that. Pocket in a Pocket wrote in, "Oh, come on, Cenk. You know very well that the reason Santas are coming in mid-September is because they won the war on Christmas, and the months of September through November are the spoils of war." Good point. I hadn't considered that. That's why we do the show with our members. tyt.com/join to become a member. Get your comments read first. And members on YouTube that just joined are James Tillman, Not That Donald, and Hector Cruz. They hit the join button below. If you're watching on YouTube, that's the way to do it, or to upgrade. And finally, Game Set John rated with 62 viewers on Twitch and donated 300 bits as well. What does any of that mean? You'll have to go on our Twitch channel to find out, twitch.tv/TYT. Rating is actually a good thing, not a bad thing on Twitch. And also for the Young Turks. We're raiders of the best sort. All right, Casper.
What?
I said
okay,
Casper,
all right, let's do it. Oh, I thought you said Kara. I'm like, we'll get to that story later, Jake. In the post game, we'll talk about Kara Eastman. Amazing story you don't want to miss. tyt.com/join to become a member. All right, now let's talk about not so great Amy Coney Barrett. All right, so Amy Coney Barrett is set to be confirmed by the Republican-controlled Senate, and it's likely to happen today, landing Donald Trump his third. That's 3 Supreme Court confirmations before the upcoming election. The final vote is scheduled at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time on Monday, meaning that if things are going as scheduled, it's happening right now as we speak. 30 days after Trump announced he was nominating Barrett for the seat left vacant by Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who died on September 18th. The vote could be held later, though, if Democrats force delays, which means that the vote is happening right now. Democrats are not able to do anything, including forced delays. The White House is considering holding a swearing-in ceremony for Barrett after the vote, either late Monday, meaning tonight, or Tuesday, according to an administration official. Now, there were some attempts by Democrats to filibuster, but to filibuster virtually. Let's see how that went.
Hi, everybody, and thank you for joining us for Our Court, Our Voices digital rally. We're going to go right through until 7 p.m. tonight, which is when we think Mitch McConnell and his Republican-led Senate are going to hold a vote on Amy Coney Barrett.
Vote. Vote early. Vote with your friends. Call everyone you know across the country. Make your voices heard. That is how we will end the hijacking of our democracy.
So it's exciting to see how everyone is mobilizing people from coast to coast to demand that our Supreme Court remain our court.
With that much at stake, I'm voting no on Judge Barrett's nomination. Thank you for having me here today and for all you've done to support the cause of equal justice under the law.
Remember, this isn't Donald Trump country. It is America's. And yeah, this shouldn't be Donald Trump's judge. It should be yours. But we have the final word. And the final word is this election.
Mitch McConnell and Senate Republicans know that you want to vote before the Senate does. Make sure they know that you do not want your health care terminated by President Trump.
So keep speaking out, keep telling your stories. Know that your voices make a difference, and know that we're going to keep fighting to protect our health care.
Wow, that looks like it really worked. No, Clarence Thomas is going to administer the constitutional oath to Amy Coney Barrett tonight, based on Fox News's reporting. So full steam ahead. The Republicans have the votes necessary to confirm Amy Coney Barrett. And one more point I want to make before I toss to you, Cenk. So remember, Senator Lisa Murkowski had some strong words, no, this is wrong. I think that we should wait until the next president gets elected and that president gets to decide who the next Supreme Court justice to be confirmed should be. And she has changed her tune. So according to NBC News, Senator Murkowski reversed course over the weekend and said that she would vote in favor of the nomination, despite previously voicing opposition to confirming a justice before Election Day. Senator Susan Collins, who is one of the most vulnerable Senate Republicans running for re-election, said that she would vote against Barrett. So Murkowski is a yes, Collins is a no, but it doesn't matter because, as we know, the Senate Republicans have enough votes to confirm Amy Coney Barrett.
Okay, I have a lot to say. First of all, I don't want to criticize the good people who put that together in terms of the progressive groups that were involved. They're trying their best, it's not their fault. But now let me clarify for the Democratic senators involved. There is no such thing as a digital filibuster. That's a made up phrase. Exactly. It's not a thing in law. There is no such thing as a filibuster for Supreme Court justices because Mitch McConnell took it away. Right now, Joe Biden is reluctant to take away the filibuster if the Democrats get the House, the Senate, and the White House. Without taking away the filibuster on legislative issues, the Democrats will get exactly zero passed. Nothing will be passed. Mitch McConnell took away the Supreme Court filibuster in a second. He did it immediately without any hesitation because he plays hardball. Democrats, meanwhile, are still playing patty cakes. So there is no filibuster. Could they have done anything? Yes. When Amy Coney Barrett was announced, I told you guys there was 5 different legislative maneuvers they could have done to delay the proceedings, and they only needed to delay it by about a week. And here we are, 8 days before the election, and they couldn't even delay it 1 day. Not 1 minute, not 1 second, because there are no such things as digital filibusters. There's actually legislative moves. You can go back and watch our videos to get all the details of what they could have done. Out of the 5 maneuvers, how many they did? 0. They did absolutely none of them. And so this whole expanding the court, I'll just give you one example. Why was that an idea in the first place? It was so that to tell the Republicans, if you try to put Barrett on the court, okay, then you're going to force us to expand the court. So we're telling you right now, you put her on the court and we're going to put 4 new people on the court, or 3 or 5 or whatever it is, and it'll be out of our hands because you'll have forced our hands. So don't you dare do it. Instead, they were like, I don't know, we might pack the court later. That's not a political threat. And then what happened? And then since you didn't know what the hell you were doing, and honestly on this one, Joe Biden was totally incompetent, it became a liability. Because he never told people why they were thinking of expanding the court. He never actually said it's because you're putting Barrett on the court and you block Garland. So it seemed like out of nowhere, the Democrats want to unfairly pack the court because they suck at this. And I get frustrated because the media is a bunch of fluffers for the Democratic establishment. So are you ever going to point out their epic incompetence? The Democratic leadership couldn't get Merrick Garland on the court, and they had over a year. The Republicans are putting Barrett on the court with a week left before the election. And yet every media person, when you ask them, hey, what do you think of Pelosi and Schumer? They're like, oh, brilliant, master tacticians. Joe Biden, everybody, brilliant, really. The way they constantly give away all of our advantages to the Republicans are such geniuses. And then when I criticize them now, people say, wait, Cenk, this is not the time to criticize. When do we criticize? After she's on the court? Well, it's right before the election, and remember what they're saying in the video, vote for me, give me power. To do what? To do what? You just bungled one of the most important issues. Remember what they say, you gotta vote for Democrats because of the Supreme Court. Here they go, screw the Supreme Court, we're not gonna do anything to stop the Supreme Court nomination, but vote for us anyway. Wait a minute, that's the exact opposite of what you've been telling us for decades. And the other point of that was not to actually block her, it was to raise money for their own power. Fine, no problem, as long as you use that power to get people on the Supreme Court and to block their nominees. But you don't, because you are historically bad at politics. But yet no one in the media will call them out. All right, we got to go to a post game. What a corporate Democrat did to Kara Eastman is beyond outrageous. So we're gonna do that in the post game for members. Hit the join button below. We'll see you there in a minute.
You know what the progressive movement needs? It needs a little energy, a little pizzazz, maybe a little caffeine. Oh, coffee. But what if it was too strong coffee? Yes, new twostrongcoffee.com/TYT. Look, this helps progressive causes. It's also organic and fair trade, so you've got peace of mind that it was done right, and it happens to taste great. So check it out right now at twostrongcoffee.com/TYT.
When somebody's the president of the United States, the authority is total, and that's the way it's got to be.
2020 is everything. Everything will be decided in 2020, and then we'll either have pessimism a long time, or we'll have optimism.
There is some good news when it comes to elections throughout the country, especially for progressives.
He's struggling in polls. He's trailing Joe Biden in many of these battleground states. And he knows that if he makes it difficult for voters to cast their ballots, especially as we're dealing with this pandemic, well, maybe it'll give him an edge over Biden.
We need to get rid of these people who are in office, who enable these systems that continue to oppress us. Start using your votes and your dollars for the people who want to preserve your community and your humanity.
Defiance is what you need in order to fight for what you know is right. The fight never ends.
Progressive candidates come on this show, we help them, and they've at least got a fighter's chance.
Expand the squad.
Here we go, Squad 2.0. Cory Bush, Jamal Bowman.
And this is why what Cenk and the Young Turks are doing is so important.
This time, it's real. If he wins another term, God knows what he'll do to our government, our democracy, and our way of life.
We need solidarity, and it begins with you.
Who's gonna fix it? Who's gonna fix it? Goddamn right. Early voting is well underway all across the country, and we hope you've either already voted or have a plan in place to vote so that you know your vote will count. And while you're at it, let everyone else know how important it is that they get out and vote too, with a vote hat or a Blue NAMI shirt or any of the other election-themed items currently available at shoptyt.com. Vote and let's make change happen now.
This looks like a conspiracy. This looks like a scheme to defraud.
The Bush administration put folks into the regulatory agencies who believed in destroying regulations.
Memories of the Great Depression are faded.
They stood on the floor of the Senate day after day attacking what they were trying to do.
They just generated all this junk, took home huge bonuses, and then when it collapsed, they said, oh, not us.
What they ginned up was pure extortion, putting a gun to the head of Congress.
Time and again, they heard the devastation that was happening in low and moderate income communities caused by bankers, by lenders, and they chose to ignore it.
I understood that the SEC was not merely a weakened version of what it was supposed to be. It was an agent of Wall Street.
When no one's enforcing the law, the criminals take over.
Turn your passions into potential investment opportunities. Whether it's cannabis, fashion, travel, video games, or anything in between, you tell us what you're interested in and we'll help you uncover the investment potential. Introducing Doe, our newest partner. With Doe, you can be an owner, not just a consumer, with no fees to trade individual stocks. Doe provides your daily one-stop investment shop with lists of companies that relate to your personal interests, relevant news on your favorite stocks, and videos that unpack today's money-moving headlines in under 3 minutes. Go to doe.com/TYT and download today.
All right, back on Young Turks, Cenk and Anna with you guys. We got more stories. I'm just gonna read one comment from you guys. Kofefe19 wrote, why are these Democrats passing the responsibility on to the voters? They should be the ones fighting against Senate Republicans and Amy Coney Barrett. You know the answer to that. But to me, what was most frustrating was, first of all, they're like, hey, go out and vote. You can make a difference by going out and voting. In this particular case, that's just not true. She's going to go on the court before we vote. So I can't stand people that aren't telling the truth. So it's super important to vote for other reasons, because a fascist might take over and arrest everyone. And he doesn't know what he's doing about coronavirus. But don't tell me that it has anything to do with Amy Coney Barrett when she's already going to be on the court by the time November 3rd comes around. And then they say, call your GOP senators. You guys are a joke. Really, Democratic senators, you think calling constituents, calling Republican senators would make a difference? Come on. All right, I'll leave it at that. I'll rage more after she's on the court, which, by the way, she could be voting as early as Wednesday on the court. Not as in, as in 2 days from now. Okay. All right, Anna.
All right, well, Kara Eastman is a progressive running for a congressional seat in Omaha, Nebraska. But a corporate Democrat went after her by joining forces with a pathetic Republican running against her. Before we get to those videos, though, I do want to note that you guys are about to see her ad hitting him back and hitting him back hard for the first time. So this is a TYT exclusive, and it's awesome, okay? She fights the way I love seeing a good, strong, progressive Democrat fight, and we'll show you that video in just a second. But first, let's get back to what a corporate Democrat did first. So the race has gotten ugly because the person she's running against, a Republican named Don Bacon, he's the Republican incumbent in this congressional seat, has joined forces with a corporate Democrat. The corporate Democrat decided to back the Republican Don Bacon as opposed to backing a progressive Democrat, Kara Eastman. So Brad Ashford is the Democrat I'm referring to here, and here he is joining forces with Republican Don Bacon for this campaign ad.
I'm Brad Ashford. Getting things done in Congress is hard. It takes listening and bipartisanship. Don Bacon and I ran against each other. Then we worked together to deliver the new VA hospital and Offutt runway. While others offer division, Don Bacon proved he can bring people together to protect our health care and get results for Nebraska. That's why this Democrat is voting for Don Bacon, and I am asking you to join me.
I am Don Bacon. I approve that message.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was the ad, Cenk.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say things that are inappropriate, so I'm gonna hold back and let you do your thing.
Okay, so first of all, let me give you the context here. Brad Ashford was the congressman from that district, and Don Bacon beat him recently. And Ashford is a total corporate Democrat, as you could tell here, and he's was always a Republican in disguise, and that's what we said. And the Democratic Party said, "How dare you? He is such a wonderful Democrat." Let me remind you that the guy he's backing, he's going on TV to actively do an ad for, voted with Trump 97% of the time. So the Democratic Party for the last decade has been telling us how awesome Brad Ashford is. In fact, Brad Ashford not only was always a Republican, he lost to Don Bacon, and the DCCC backed Ashford anyway in running against him in 2018. Well, who beat Ashford in the primary? Kara Eastman did. So she was a Justice Democrat and a progressive, and she beat Ashford by a small margin. And God, the Democratic Party didn't like that. They said, I mean, Bacon beat Ashford, the corporate Democrat, but Kara won't be able to come any closer. Well, it turns out she did come a lot closer. She barely lost by about 1.5 points. So this time she's got him on the ropes, and she's leading in the polling. So she's about to put away Don Bacon. And to be fair to the DCCC, in this case, they did help her finally. Oh, by the way, who did Kara beat in the primary? Ann Ashford, Ashford's wife. Ashford was so bitter about Kara Eastman beating him in the primary that he's like, okay, now Ann Ashford's gonna run. My wife's gonna run against you. Did Kara wind up beating her by a small margin too? No, Kara beat her by over 30 points. Basically, the primary voters, Democratic voters in Nebraska's 2nd district said, how much clearer did we need to be? It's Kara Eastman. We're not interested in the Ashfords anymore. So Ashford then turns around and goes, between the progressive and the Republican, who should I back? Now remember, corporate Democrats always say unity, unity. No matter how much we vote with the Republicans, you have to back establishment Democrats because of #unity. But when push came to shove, and that district is so close. And you have to remember one other thing about Ashford. Nebraska votes district by district for the presidential race. They're one of only 2 states that does that. And Nebraska's second right now, Biden is leading. So when Ashford goes on TV, he's also betraying Joe Biden because he's helping voters go to the Republican side to vote for Trump and Bacon. So he goes, between the progressive and the Republican, who should I choose? Oh, that's a no-brainer. I'm a corporate Democrat, so of course I'm gonna choose my Republican friend. And by the way, not only help him, but lie about his record and say he's gonna help you with your health care. No, he's not. Don Bacon has voted against your health care coverage literally over 4 dozen times. He tried to kill the Affordable Care Act. He votes against every provision that would get you health care, every single one. Brad Ashford decided not only am I going to lie on his behalf, I will do a television ad lying on his behalf to betray the Democratic Party because I was always a Republican. But on the ad, I'll say I'm a Democrat. So that's the kind of sick people these corporate Democrats are. So there was never any unity. And to be clear, the ad we're gonna show you next is not from Kara Eastman. Kara runs a good, tough campaign, but independent expenditures are not allowed to talk to her and honestly don't care what her strategy is. We wanna tell people what is actually happening in the race and what the true record is. So the ad you're about to see is from Rebellion PAC and PCCC. Hey, look at that, 2 progressive groups working together. It is actually possible that progressives can fight together and win together. So we decided, and I say we in this case because I'm also the founder of Rebellion PAC, that we're gonna do an ad to counter what is happening there, because this race is incredibly critical to the national election, to progressives, and to all Democrats. So here's the new ad by Rebellion PAC and PCCC. Watch.
I'm a food worker here in Omaha and I have coronavirus. I can't go to the ER, I can't afford it.
Congressman Don Bacon is putting us all at risk by voting down the coronavirus relief workers need.
I've had service industry friends who are sure that they have COVID, are not self-isolating, they can't afford it.
Kara Eastman supports COVID relief. She wants everyone to have access to Medicare. Don Bacon would take away people's health care in the middle of a pandemic. It's time for a change.
So that is the super PAC arm of PCCC. And I know that a lot of these letters get confusing, but that's Progressive Change Campaign Committee. They're progressives and great. And in fact, they have 7 people in redtobold.com that you should check out who are progressives running in purple districts. That makes a giant difference, okay? Now, if you wanna help raise money for that ad so we could run it more and more and more in that district to counter what Ashford did, go to rebellionpac.com/join. RebellionPAC, that's PAC.com/join, and we'll have the link down below if you're watching this later on YouTube or Facebook. Just click on the link, and every dollar you put in goes towards helping run that ad in Nebraska so people get the actual message. With all those people sick, with all those people needing help, Kara is bold enough to run on Medicare for all in the middle of Nebraska. If you don't help her, who the hell are you gonna help? So that election is absolutely critical, the most important election left. And there's other wonderful progressives. Check out redtobold.com too, because those are all important races. But this is the most important race, and this is where we had the corporate Democrat do an unbelievable betrayal to try to help the Republican win at the end. And the race is so close and you could make all the difference. So we gotta unite, we gotta rally on behalf of our own fighters.
I love it. I love seeing ads like that. So definitely help support Rebel PAC, and let's see more ads where progressives are kicking some butt because we need it. All right, let's move on to probably my favorite story of the day, and it involves Lou Dobbs, believe it or not. So Fox Business host Lou Dobbs is probably Donald Trump's #1 bootlicker. In fact, he licks Donald Trump's boots so hard, so aggressively, that he believes that Senator Lindsey Graham is like a traitor to Trump, isn't going hard enough in defending Donald Trump and carrying out his agenda. So here is Lou Dobbs going after Senator Lindsey Graham.
Just to be clear, I don't know why anyone in the great state of South Carolina would ever vote for Lindsey Graham. It's just outrageous. This is the guy who keeps saying, stay tuned. He said he was going to get to the bottom of Obamagate with the Judiciary Committee, which has been a year and a half, actually longer, of absolute inert response to these pressing issues of our day. And this is what, by the way, Donald Trump said of Senator Lindsey Graham back in 2016 while he was campaigning for the presidency in South Carolina. I believe the president's words about the senator then apply today. He said, I think Lindsey Graham is a disgrace, and I think you have one of the worst representatives of any representative in the United States. I don't think he could run for dog catcher in this state and win again. I really don't. Other than that, I think he's wonderful. He's one of the dumbest human beings I've ever seen. The guy is a nut job. Graham has betrayed President Trump at almost every turn. He has betrayed the American people and his oath of office. He's done absolutely nothing to investigate Obamagate except to tell everyone, stay tuned. Time and time again, stay tuned. Senator Graham needs to be tuned out in South Carolina.
That was so good. That was so good because I don't know, like, imagine being so short-sighted and so obsessed with kissing Trump's butt that you don't even think strategy at all about like the Republican Party, right? Because in this case, in South Carolina, Senator Lindsey Graham is in a tough re-election race. Jamie Harrison, the Democrat, has outraised him. If you look at the polling now, it looks like Jamie Harrison has a slight lead over Senator Lindsey Graham. I mean, it's a toss-up still, but there's a good chance that the Democrat could beat this sitting Republican in the Senate, which is a big deal because there is a possibility that Democrats can take control of the Senate after this upcoming election. So, but Lou Dobbs doesn't care about any of that. You got Lou Dobbs up in here reading a Trump quote like he's reading a Mark Twain quote. Like it's amazing. He's reading like the dumbest quote and making it seem as though like the brilliant Donald Trump says this about Lindsey Graham. And by the way, Lindsey Graham is trash, so I don't care. Go after Lindsey Graham, go after him hard. But it's just amazing how they're like eating their own in a story or in a situation where Democrats could take control of the Senate. It's delicious. So tasty. I had dessert before dinner tonight.
Okay, so it is downright moronic. So if it was anybody but Dobbs, I'd be a little reluctant to say it on air for worried that they might realize what a dumb strategy that is and go back to helping Lindsey Graham. But it's Lou Dobbs. He's beyond any help. He can't see straight. He couldn't. For him, 2 + 2 = 87. So I can tell him anything I want. It doesn't matter. Hurting Lindsey Graham like this right before the election and suppressing his Republican votes is awesome. And so why are they doing that? Because it's never enough for the fascists. So, and I don't think the word fascism is hyperbole here at all. So let me explain why I say that in this context. So Lindsey Graham, as you guys have seen for the last 4 years, has done everything to lick Donald Trump's boots, and groveled to him. Even after Donald Trump said all those horrible things about him 4 or 5 years ago, those quotes are accurate. He did say that about him. And of course, I love the projection in the quotes. That's the dumbest guy on earth. He's a nut job. I'm like, wait, are you talking about yourself or Lindsey Graham? And Lindsey Graham even said, look, I'm doing everything Trump wants so I can get closer to power so I could effectuate the changes that I want, which is more wars, right? So he didn't clarify the more wars part, but we know Lindsey Graham. So he's been brazen about saying, yeah, I'm kissing his ass on purpose politically. And it was still not enough. Why? Because he's the head of the Judiciary Committee. And what Dobbs was referencing there was what they call Obamagate. So they wanted the Judiciary Committee and the Justice Department and the FBI all to investigate whether Obama unmasked Michael Flynn, and if Joe Biden was part of it, and if they did, they should be arrested right before the election. Trump is not joking. He has said it 3 times, at least in public, that he wants his opponent in this election arrested. If that's not fascist, what is? Arrested right before the election on trumped up charges. Why do I say they're trumped up charges? Pun somewhat intended. Because the Judiciary Committee did look into it. And they're like, there's nothing here, okay? So what Lindsey Graham was doing was politically relatively smart. He's saying, oh, this Obamagate stuff is terrible. I can't believe what they did. I mean, we can't share it with you now, because we're ethical people. We'll tell you later. Because he knows he didn't do anything. And the FBI director, Chris Wray, is more direct. He's like, there's no evidence to charge anyone. And then Bill Barr, the Attorney General, again, who would do anything for Trump, got John Durham, his own special political hack, to do an investigation of this. And Durham came back to him with we got nothing, right? And so Bill Barr's like, oh, it's real bad. We'll have to tell you later, right? But Trump's such a dummy and a fascist, and I'll explain why those two things are both apt for him, that he's like, well, if you have something, why don't you release it now? No, you dummy, they don't have anything. 2 different Republican-led Senate committees looked into it and said, we got nothing, there's nothing there. But in his own insane conspiratorial mind, he thinks, oh, yeah. This is the worst crime in American history. I can't believe they have it and they're not doing it right before the election. And I say that's the dumb part. The fascist part is, hey, Bill Barr, Lindsey Graham, who cares if they did it or not? Just arrest them. What difference does it make? Because again, he does projection. He thinks, why wouldn't we break the law to make up evidence against them and then put them behind bars? Well, duh, they're opposed to us. Of course that's what we would do. Because he's an actual bona fide fascist. That's what fascists do. They arrest their political opponents based on no evidence. So that's why he's so frustrated with even his top lapdogs, Bill Barr and Lindsey Graham. And I love it. I'm here for it.
I'm here for it too. It's so good. Best story of the day.
Yeah, and guys, I'll end on this. So Jamie Harrison has raised a tremendous amount of money. Even Rebellion PAC maxed out to him, not based on Jamie Harrison being the world's best progressive, but because beating Lindsey Graham would be so awesome. Especially, I mean, he said a million horrible things, but especially after Lindsey Graham said, well, you're not welcome in all parts of South Carolina if you're black or an immigrant, unless you're a conservative. Then you're allowed everywhere in South Carolina. But if you don't agree with us and you're one of those groups, well, you're not welcome in certain parts. This is in the year 2020. He said it in a debate with Jamie Harrison. So rebellionpac.com/join to help defeat monsters like Lindsey Graham, and we'd like to thank Lou Dobbs for the assist.
All right, well, let's talk about a big guest that was on Joe Rogan's podcast recently. As we all know, Kanye West wants to be president. And so to make his case, he went on the most popular podcast, that's Joe Rogan's podcast, to make his case. And so there were some moments from the interview that really stood out. But I wanna, before we play the videos, just highlight why Joe Rogan's podcast is valuable. Because it's not this overproduced, hyper-produced situation. It gives people this, I think, false sense of confidence that they can speak for 3 hours straight without making any mistakes or really showing that they're not prepared for what they claim they're prepared for, or that they're really not as great as they claim they are. And I think that this interview was a perfect example of it. So let's take a look at the first clip.
What if China takes over Taiwan? What if they invade Taiwan? What if something happens with Syria? What if something happens with Iran? What if something happens with Russia? And you have to make decisions about military action. Have you thought about this?
Yes, I would.
So that's the video that you might have seen go viral on Twitter. That was the first video I saw of the interaction. But to be fair, he did give an answer after that long pause. So let's be fair. Let's play it in some more context, and then we can have a discussion about it. Watch.
You have to make decisions about military action. Have you thought about this?
Yes, I would. I have to say again, like COVID, I'm a civilian, and people could have all their perspectives that they could have of what they would do in that situation. But I would have the greatest professionals on the planet, the most skilled people that have all the experience that would present the information, and I would make the most sound, rational decisions, and I would follow God's will in my approach to dealing with these other countries, to dealing with these other leaders.
Okay, so there's more context for people who are ready to jump at us for not providing a lengthier video of Kanye's answer. But my take on it is that it's still disastrous, as I expected it to be, because Kanye West is not an expert on foreign policy. Kanye West hasn't really cared much about foreign policy, or at least not to the extent that's necessary for someone who's going to be commander in chief. I don't know how serious Kanye West has been about actually running for president. But what I do know is that there is a certain portion of the country, tiny portion, I wouldn't think that it's enough to really influence the election in one way or the other, who think that he's a genius. Yeah. They think that he has what it takes to be president. And look, this is not an indictment on Kanye West. This is an indictment on a lot of people who don't realize what the responsibility of that job is. To be a president is to be the ultimate public servant. That is the point of being president. It is meant to put your ego aside. It's meant to put your own needs, your own businesses aside in order to serve as a public servant. And we've moved so far away from that notion. It's become a giant vanity project now for celebrities, for reality show hosts like Donald Trump. And we see what that's led to in this country. It's led to division, hostilities between Americans. It's led to economic crashes. It's led to complete and utter disaster. And it's not a joke. Like, that's the thing that frustrates me the most about this whole situation, that people see it as a joke, as like a fun little vanity project. And look, Kanye West has, some mental health stuff, and I don't really want to go there. And I know that this is a story about Kanye West, but I really want to use this interaction to make a bigger point about how the presidency of the United States shouldn't be seen as a fun little joke. And I feel like people are treating it as such.
Okay, yeah, I'll go there. I'll go there easily and often. So if Kanye West has mental health issues and he just wants to sit in his studio and he wants to make albums and lead his private life, what am I gonna get in the guy's business for? I'm a progressive, let's get him some help, it's all good. But if you wanna run for president in the most consequential race of our lifetimes, and this is a rare case where that's not hyperbole, and you want to try to skew it in favor of Donald Trump by taking votes away from the Democratic candidate when you have literally, mathematically, a 0% chance of winning. I don't mean polling. I mean, he can't win enough states to become president because the idiot started too late, so he couldn't get on the ballot in most of the states. He's on in a couple of swing states, and I guess the hope is he takes enough votes away from Biden to help Trump win, because that's the only rational thing that could possibly happen. He literally cannot be president. He's not in enough ballots. He can't win enough electoral college votes. So you want to say to me, hey, Kanye West is mentally ill? Okay, then get him some help. And don't put him on a ballot, etc. Is everybody around him massively guilty of putting a mentally ill guy on TV, on podcasts, and on ballots, most importantly? Yeah, I guess so. I guess, they're all monsters. If we're pretending that he's not mentally ill, because that's what everybody's pretending, right? Oh, Kanye is good, Kanye is smart. I hear people telling me Kanye is a genius. If you're gonna tell me Kanye is a genius, then I'm gonna tell you Kanye is one of the dumbest guys in the country. Did you see that answer? We didn't stop the tape. He would actually go like this for 2-3 seconds before answering, because there's nothing up there. Now look, guys, again, if he just wants to be a musician, what do I care? And it's possible that you could be smart in some things and dumb in other things. It's not just possible, it's definitely the case that our brains are structured in different ways where you have different expertise, etc. But think about how arrogant and elitist and entitled it is to say, even though I don't know anything about policy or politics, I want to be president. Why? Because I'm rich and I'm a genius. And I do sneakers for $1 billion or whatever he charges, and I do white shirts for $250 that don't have any designs on them because I'm a genius. I mean, I don't know who's dumber, Kanye West or the people who buy a white t-shirt for $250 because Kanye the genius made it white. Okay, so I mean, this guy's been an idiot for a long, long time in things other than music. And if you can't see that, okay, so, but think about the arrogance. He hasn't thought about one foreign policy issue. It's like me saying, hey, you know what? I'm gonna be a brain surgeon. Cenk, how would you operate on the brain? I would hire the best experts and leave it to God's will. No, you get a job. You get someone for that job. You get a brain surgeon. You would never have someone operate on somebody's brain who says, I'll get other experts and I don't know a thing about it, right? But when it comes to politics and the president of the United States, actually it's not one person's life on the line. As we've seen with coronavirus and countless other examples, the Iraq war, and almost every decision they make, literally millions of lives are on the line. And Kanye, the arrogant prick that he is, goes around going, I don't know anything, but I'm gonna run anyway. I want to be famous. I want to be more famous. I want more money. Remember when he ran out of money? And then he went and begged Zuckerberg, oh, but I'm a genius, you should give me more money because I took all the millions of dollars that I had just like Donald Trump and I flushed it down the toilet like an idiot. And so now give me more money, you owe it to me. For what? He owes the money for what? So for all the Kanye apologists, go piss off. And I don't care how much, I don't like you anymore. Because I like Kanye's music, that's why I think he should help destroy the country. I got no interest in you. So look, I agree with Anna, Rogan does some public service here because they trust him, they come on. He asked them honestly simple questions. I mean, what would you do if China invaded Taiwan is a tough question for a dentist. For a person running for office, let alone president, that's a super simple question. That's one of the first things that you would study up on foreign policy. And Kanye's answer is, So this has nothing to do with him being a rapper. There's a rapper I'd love to have run for office, maybe even president. His name is Killer Mike, okay? You wanna see someone who's an actual genius, who's actually smart, who can actually talk politics and policy, go to Killer Mike. You wanna bring out an idiot like Kanye to do a show to try to get votes away from Biden so Trump can win, go enjoy that show.
All right, I got a class to teach. And by the way, next on our Twitch channel, Ricky Strum, TYT Sports. That's what's happening next. Check it out on our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/TYT.